All right, welcome back to another episode of Rap Drinks. Today's guest is Jeremy Balon. He is a Union 52 prop master. Some of his work includes Half Nelson, Movie 43, and Elementary. Jeremy is also the founder of Seltzer Kings, a story-driven podcast network and production studio based in Brooklyn, New York. So today we're going to talk to Jeremy about being a prop master and also running a podcast network on the side as a small hustle. So yeah, welcome Jeremy. Thanks so much for being on Rap Drinks with us.
Cheers to the Rap Drinks.
Sweet.
I can't reach you over there, but cheers nonetheless. Thanks for having me, everybody. It's I've been enjoying what you guys do, and as a almost 30-year member of the film and TV community, there's some probably better fitting props that could sit here. But appreciate you having me.
No, for sure. Thanks for coming out. So why don't we get started with the basic question here? How did you get started in the film industry? How did you get to being a prop master?
So I went to film school and I dropped out, like all good film.
Nice. Good start.
Shout out to Wright State University in Dayton, Ohio. That's WRIGHT. At the Wright brothers. So I went to film school, basically tried to, wanted to be like sort of everybody else does when they get into the industry of like, I'm just going to step right in and somebody's going to see me and I'm going to be a director or a whatever producer so I had those sort of lofty expectations for sure. But yeah, I was driven, man. I really wanted to make movies. I wanted to especially make stuff with my friends, and I'd grown up with video cameras, and it's one of those things. Well, a little thing about me, I had a brain tumor when I was a kid, so that's why I look so young. I'm almost 50, but it was on my pituitary gland. So that was my, when I was sitting in bed recovering, or when I was like, basically trying to get better to go back to school or whatever, post-surgery or pre-surgery, that's all I would watch is just give me the TV, and that's my comfort. I'll watch a movie, I'll watch, Inspector Gadget or whatever it is. But that's kind of where the love of film and TV and stuff started. I remember being pushed into surgery and Inspector Gadget was on, and I was like, and I was the only one on a gurney. And so they pushed me in, and there was like 3 or 4 empty gurneys, and I look up, and there's Inspector Gadget playing, and then at some time later, like the anesthesiologist comes in, and it's like, all right, it's time. And it's scary. You're 10, you're having brain surgery. You don't know if you're gonna wake up. But it's Children's Hospital Cincinnati. Shout out to them. They fixed me up right quick. So.
Did you pick Inspector Gadget, or was that just like what the anesthesiologist was like? He'll enjoy this while
they're going to put
out
a propeller in my head
that's
and
what
place
I was
in the
hoping.
tower.
Man, that's what I was hoping.
You come out with a hat, you're like, sick.
Just one thing, like a lighter in my fingertip or something. Like, just give me one.
It would be a bottle opener if you're working in the film industry.
That's true. Yeah. Or like a tape roll or something, like something boring. Yeah. So that was my escape, and I think I always just wanted to either go to LA or New York and make movies and stuff. So I from then I went to college, dropped out, and then was sort of floating aimlessly. And
were you working in Ohio or?
No, I didn't do much film stuff in Ohio. I just did the dropping out there, and then and then moved. So I was sort of fighting depression a little bit, and so I moved to Florida. My aunt had a house on the beach, and I was just like, I'm just gonna hang here. I'll live here now. St. Augustine, Florida.
Florida is the obvious choice when you're depressed.
Oh yeah. You can shoot things, you can burn things down.
Wrestle gators.
Oh yeah. And this was like 20 years ago, so it was even more different. But
just more meth.
Yeah. The man of Florida was not named yet. Yeah. He was still a baby, Florida boy. But yeah, so that. I moved to Florida, and I was working coffee shops and trying to figure out what I was doing in my life. And I happened to see I was working a shift at Starbucks, and a guy came in and said he just auditioned, and we had talked before about film stuff, and he was wanted to be an actor. And so he was like, there's a film being made about an hour away called Sunshine State. And John Sayles' film, he is, if you don't know, look up John Sayles, a legendary film director He did 8 Men Out. He did Marijuana. He did lots of great indie films. He was one of the last great indie filmmakers. To be honest, Sunshine State was his last Steenbeck edited film.
Wow.
So he was still using Steenbeck way into the time when you probably shouldn't have been. So he would go home and literally cut film.
Yeah. Well, when you can't get that out of your house. So if it's there, you have to use it, right?
Cannot.
It's like a grand piano.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I had a friend in Dayton that got one randomly, and it took up his entire living room. But it's such a humble brag, man. It's like having a Steenbeck in your house is like having a dolly, one of those expensive dollies.
Fisher dolly in your garage.
You can't buy them. You can lease them, but you can't buy them.
it's got a Fisher 10 in my kitchen.
That's how I get to the top level of the cups. Hold on, I got to charge it up. Hold on. So yeah, that was the beginnings. I moved there and I got a job.
Were you working as a PA on Sunshine State? Or
I started as an intern in the art department. Art department needed help, and
is that lower than a PA?
The art department?
No, intern.
I was like, whoa,
no,
intern in art department from my department.
No,
intern is lower than PA, absolutely.
Lower than like art PA.
Yeah.
Intern. Okay.
So I interned for about a week, and then I said, listen, I love doing this. I want to do this, but I'm driving an hour each way. I'm still working Starbucks. Like, either I need to get paid or I can't come back. And they were like, all right, we'll pay you. So that
never hurts to ask.
Wow.
Never hurts to ask.
that turned into an office PA, which wasn't an office PA. I was an art PA, basically, with this guy, Sean Carroll, who I think still works in the industry. But so he hired me as his sort of right-hand man, and I just sort of shadowed him, and we made this crazy independent movie about basically getting priced out of Florida. It's basically about a very small part of the Sunshine State. So yeah, I worked on that and started PAing. I think I was making $75 a day, which was real nice compared to Starbucks.
Isn't that sad? that was a good rate back then.
Oh yeah. And then I don't even know if I don't know if they were W-9s. I think they just gave you $75.
Yeah. You gotta find the guy with the envelope at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And if he leaves before you didn't get
screwed.
paid.
Then you're like, no bar this weekend. But yeah, I mean, that was the beginning, Sunshine State, and I got to work with John Sayles, and I'd seen 8 Men Out and seen a couple of his other movies because I was a film geek at that point. I think I've sort of lost it over the years, but we'd go out, one day we'd have to make like tabby walls for the set, like fake tabby walls, which is like the seashells with the concrete, and we would make huge columns and piers and fake tombstones, and just like a crazy, it's not serving espresso. It was a complete right turn.
Yeah.
But I felt like, oh my God, this might be the thing, because I took a lot of like art in high school, and then I didn't take any in college, but film. But so yeah, I was like, this could be the path forward, and so I just started grinding from there. And I think everyone who gets into the industry does this thing where as long as it's paying money and as long as you're not dying, you're going to show up and you're going to do the work because you love it, because you really love the industry, you really love making these things, because all of us do. We all watch them every single day of our lives.
Yeah.
It's a big part of our life. So yeah, it was just a huge thing of getting that first job under your belt and learning, from some really great people. And Sunshine State, man, it was, we got to burn down a huge float. We had to make a huge float, and then I didn't really have to help making it, but at some point it catches on fire, so you get to see like this huge boat on fire in the middle of the parking lot. So that was fun. But so yeah, that's where I cut my teeth, man.
Was the art department your intention, or was that just where the opening was?
That's where the opening was.
But
yeah, and officially, honestly, I was an office PA.
Yeah,
and I was an art PA basically, but they couldn't credit me as an art PA for some reason. I think it was a union thing, but back when we were talking about earlier, back when it was a little more stringent. But honestly, like that movie, being in Florida, seeing the prop department, the guy had a scooter, and he'd show up, he'd go in his truck and he'd offload his truck, and he'd pull out his little Vespa, and then he'd hook up his carts to the back of the Vespa, and he'd drive the Vespa to set, drop the carts, and drive back to the truck.
I like this guy.
Now it's what do they use like the
I've got a GoTrek scooter.
oh there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's changed, but there's no more gasoline Vespas in the back of the prop
I mean, in
truck.
Florida there probably is.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this guy had done all the Fast and Furious
four-wheeler.
movies. Yeah. So he was like on the set of I just see him on the set of Fast and the Furious 1 and 2, like with his little Vespa, carrying out his carts with, billion-dollar cars.
Awesome. Well, there was a rigging grip guy that had his own like golf cart that every night they had to drive it up.
Genius.
And I'm like, this is insane that you have to leave room for a fucking electric golf cart on the back of the.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Not happy. And especially, the art department or the prop truck a lot of times will get a lot of the stuff from the art department from that shoot day. So we would have to stuff it in somehow because they didn't want to pay somebody to work the wrap out back in the indie film days. It's all changed, but that was the first sort of experience of film and being on somewhere where you spend 3 hours on one setup and try to get that perfect thing. And it just stuck, man. It was like from there I moved. Oddly enough, John Sayles and his partner Maggie, who was the producer of the project, had a house in Hoboken. And I guess I'd done such great work that they were like, hey, go live at our house for a little while. You want to move to New York? Go live in Hoboken. Live in our house.
Wow.
Incredible. So I did that for about 6 months. Didn't have to pay any New York rent. I paid the phone bill, I think, back when that was a thing. But so yeah, that's how I got to New York the first time. I was basically just living free off this director.
Broke into a director's house and stayed on his couch. Yeah. No.
Exactly. But I always remember, because I came from a town of like 1,200 people, and coming to New York, I remember driving that day. And it's still it's like a movie to me where it's getting late in the day. My entire car is packed with like CRT monitors because I edited and I did all this shit. And so I went to look for this house, and it was dark. And it's scary, man, being your first time and second time in the city ever. And you come over this ridge and you see the entirety of what you're going into. And I just freaked out a little bit. And so I called them, and they were unavailable. They couldn't kind of work, help me get to the house. And then, so basically I got lost in Jersey City at night, and
Not sketch at all.
and just freaked me out. So I went back towards the airport, got a hotel. I remember pushing out all of my CRT monitors on a hotel cart, packed into the hotel. And then when I woke up, it wasn't so scary because it was daytime. And so I found the place.
Time had passed.
Exactly. And and so I lived there for several years. I lived there for several months. And then, of course, 9/11 happened. And then that really freaked me out because I was in Hoboken, and I got to see the full sort of scope of the damage and smell the smells. And it was nuts. So that freaked me out. And I actually had to go back to Ohio for a bit and just kind of recover and sort of get my mind right and know that the world wasn't out to get me, and that was like a freak thing. And
Sure, yeah.
But
So when you were here in New York during that brief 6-month time, were you working as a PA in the art department still, or were you trying different things out in different departments?
I did office PA a little bit. I did some art PA stuff on commercial or smaller commercials and stuff like that. But yeah, it was PA gigs basically that kept me alive. And, luckily I didn't have to pay rent at that point. So it wasn't as stressful, because that's the big thing about living here. It's like sometimes it feels like you're working to just pay your rent.
Oh, yeah.
Pay somebody else's building.
Totally. Yeah.
Everyone has a unique story of how they got into the city and started doing it. I lived under a staircase for 12
Really?
months. Yeah, just pirated off of an apartment that my girlfriend's mom had.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what was your layout? You had
It was basically if
Just
the
slept there?
back of a house had a porch and then someone enclosed it.
Wow.
It was like that.
I learned this on Sunshine State. This is the point where he's saying Hollywood. Yeah. It's like I learned that on Sunshine State when you're carrying, you're covered in shit and you're sweated and people have been yelling at you all day, and then you go and at some point you just got to be like Hollywood.
Jazz hands.
Jazz hands. Yeah, exactly.
What brought you back to the city? I guess, or did you continue film in Ohio for a little bit?
No,
because
I went back and just got super depressed and fat.
Dayton.
It was Cincinnati. It was like I live right between Dayton, Cincinnati, and Columbus.
City,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's one of those in the middle of those three Cincinnati, Ohio cities. But yeah, and I lived at my brother's house in his loft. So
nice,
above the stairs.
Nice,
above, yeah,
Nice.
Fancy.
One above, one below. And, just got super depressed and didn't know what I was doing and really loved living in New York, but couldn't see how I could even survive on a PA salary. So, yeah, I basically...
Salary is a funny word.
And listen.
Yeah. Day rate.
And it's, we're giving it a lot of, leeway there, but...
Yeah.
It's basically like a per diem.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But where were we? What were we talking about?
Living in
how you
Ohio.
came back.
Yeah.
When you
so I
came
was
back.
living in Ohio, super depressed, living in an attic, really pushing.
Wait, it was a loft like 2 seconds ago.
It was a loft, but it had an attic feel. Yeah.
Which one's worse?
Attic is
It's a
definitely
loft
worse.
with
Loft
short
is like,
ceilings.
Well, let's put it this way: it was the room I grew up in.
Okay.
So I was a little put off about ugh. But I made it through. I had a good, my family's amazing and would do anything for me. And same goes both ways, obviously. But so from there, I sort of started saving money and was working. I was doing landscaping and laying down sod and just weird odd jobs.
We call that greens.
The Greens Committee. I didn't graduate to the Greens.
It's still our department.
Yeah. But yeah, so I sort of saved a little money and then moved back to Florida.
Oh, you went backwards.
Because that's what you do. I did sort of the same thing twice. I was like, no, let's give Florida a chance.
Yeah, it worked the first time, so maybe the second time.
Again,
And it did. Oddly enough, I worked. I thought I wanted to be a chef, so I sort of stopped the film stuff and started working at restaurants, and I was cooking. And so from there, I met a close friend named Ryan. He's a chef, and so we decided that we were going to move to New York together and split a place, and so that helped, that burden of the New York rents. However, looking back, we got an apartment on the Upper East Side for $1,200 for a 2-bedroom apartment.
Oh, wow.
Good luck now.
But that 2 bedrooms were no hallways, jammed together as much as possible. But so that's when I came back and I just pedaled to the metal. Didn't look up from there. When I first got there, I was wandering the city. This is so weird. And I remember where I was. I was going to go to an employment hall, what are they called? Where you can go. They put you on a list for a desk job.
A temp agency.
Yeah, temp agency. So there was one in Lower Manhattan. And so I'm walking around and I'm about to go into this temp agency and I see the guy who I worked on a film upstate with. Literally, instead of going to the temp office, he was like, hey, you know anybody's looking for work? He's like, you've done prop master stuff before, right? And of course, the answer, as you guys know, is,
yes.
oh yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Tons.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Said PA master? Yeah. One of those.
Yeah. Prop master? Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah. So I was like, yeah, of course. And so we got to talking and hired me on. And so that was my first prop master gig, 12 and holding, about a couple kids and a shooting. And, I did all this stuff, got to learn about the Ijeba smoker. I don't know, you guys remember the Ijeba? I had a picture I couldn't find, but it's basically looks like a huge cannon, like this big. And you'd put it over your shoulder and you would go, because, back then you did everything. There was no effects department. and you would fire it up, and then you would just start smoking out the set.
Oh man, I think I've seen this thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's called the Ajeba.
It's just a leaf blower with a fire in it somewhere.
Exactly.
I feel like I've used it before on like a shoot in the woods where it was just like two guys like walking back and forth, smoking the whole woods.
Nowadays they're like this big. But like back in the day, it looked like a Ghostbuster, ghost busting machine. But yeah, so I got to work on that. And one of the things I remember is being past prep, showing up to shoot maybe a weekend or so, and they asked for the background props.
What's that?
And I was like, I have to do the background props? Oh. This is why you don't. Well, this is maybe why you do say yes to everything. But so I didn't even know that the prop guy did background props. I thought that was something else. I don't even know.
You told me they were going to bring their own.
Yeah, the construction workers didn't bring shovels. So that was a huge learning experience. Just it's learning on the job. It's faking till you make it. It's
till you bomb.
Exactly. But if you get somebody good who really wants to be in the industry and is like, I went on after that to do job after job after job and burn myself out. But that really set the standard for jobs that I would work on as far as like prop master. From then on, you're a prop master. Doesn't matter if you don't know that background needs props.
Yeah,
you're still you've done it. It's over. You've done it. You're a prop guy. So, and then it started clicking with me of like all the little stuff, the printout stuff, and the hand props, and the rings, and I really like the detail work of the prop department. For me, that's the best part, is making these little things and acquiring these weird props for sometimes actors are very specific about them, but yeah, so that's kind of that was the initial job, was 12 and Holding, that really got me going. But
did you get an opportunity to like work under a different prop master after that, and then like really see what the full scale of the job is? Or did you have to teach it all yourself?
No, I had learned. Luckily, I had done one job called Keen in New Jersey with a prop master named Jose Pavone. I don't know if anybody knows Jose. Amazing, one of the best prop masters in New York City. But he had been a prop master, and I was another one of these fake titles. I was the some like art department lead or something that wasn't true. They had fired that person, and they're like, "Hey, you seem to have a good work ethic. You're from the Midwest. You will show up." So I did that, and he was labeling the beer bottles, and he was like, so I learned from Jose, like that's how I got all of the insights, all of those little prop tricks, the scraping the beer bottles, soaking them, using, the goof off and relabeling things, and, how you handle guns on set and how you handle kid actors. And so, yeah, that was a big learning experience, just watching him do what he did. And we were close friends and had become close friends, so yeah, that was he was the original teacher of the props, so
all right.
Yeah. And then he turned down Half Nelson, and so that was right in that range of 2005 4ish, where he recommended me. It was one of the first jobs he recommended me for.
Okay.
So I show up with a suit and tie on, not a suit, but a dress shirt and a tie to apply to be the prop master of Half Nelson. Met one of my lifelong friends now, Beth Mickle, who does really big production design jobs. She's incredible. And then I worked with her for years and years after. But yeah, that led me to Half Nelson. That sort of taught me, how to deal with Ryan Gosling and how to deal with, bigger actors or bigger producers. And so, yeah, it was that film changed my life, I think, in a lot of ways. So,
did he pass on it because he had another gig lined up, or was he?
I think so. He was doing Chappelle Show, baby.
Oh man,
yeah,
good reason to pass.
Yeah, that's a good reason to pass.
But he also did the last season of Chappelle Show where he didn't show up, so they were all sitting there waiting on him, and he went to South Africa.
God.
I don't blame him. Now looking back,
you still get paid if you show up, right?
Yeah,
100%.
You're still waiting.
He's fine.
Yeah, 100%. There's more of the crew than there are the producers. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
I want to ask you about what the prep is that is involved when you are coming on as a prop master. Like, I'm assuming like you get the script, you get to outline what the actual like props are going to be, but what is that process like? Or what was it like for you during that time when you were working on like Half Nelson, like getting all those elements ready?
Well, I was in my tie, and I was sitting in my. So basically, what I would do is and again, I'm coming from just learning from somebody else. So I was failing forward, kind of just trying to figure it all out. But you get the script, you start breaking it down. Back in those days, you do everything, so you have to account for the effects and the director's chair. Obviously, still do that, but a lot of the stuff that gets sort of dispersed in the bigger things into more finite departments.
Wait, you said the director's chair? So the prop master also brings the director's chairs?
Props do director's chairs in New York. LA, they don't, but in New York,
Boston, they do. It's like they just have a cart. It's not just director. It's like all of Video Village.
Okay.
Yeah.
Didn't know
But
that.
wait, do Grips still make those little side tables for everyone in Video Village, or do props have those?
I mean, they come to Electric if they need a little table light. Like it's weird that you could have an entire crew that just sets up Video Village. It's kind of stupid.
It is. But then again, it's job security. So it's like, because there is sometimes when you're a prop and you're just standing around in Grip or Electric or whatever, and you're just standing around. And I feel like the one department that always gets shit for that is the prop department. Like, oh, let's let some people go. You got too many people, and which, most times it's hard for producers to understand what we really do on set.
Yeah.
And
especially in that department, because it's like you definitely need to prep for the next day.
Yeah.
I don't need to find a different light for tomorrow.
And
like,
Yeah, but they're not going to come and tell the Grips that. The Grips are scary.
Yeah.
that's why we teach you never piss off a Grip. That's right. Yeah, I know the
Go
joke
up to that
is
truck with all the guys with the knives and tell them that
and the beer cooler by the gate. Yeah, that's the people you're gonna pick on.
He's drunk. It's 9:30 a.m. He's already drunk. I'm not talking to him.
Yeah. But damn, he's a good gaffer. God damn, he's a good gaffer. He could shape light like nobody else.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. So you would prep with like you'd break down the script, you'd get the director's chairs and all that stuff. So what other parts of the prep are involved?
So you break it down. You start, obviously you talk to the director, have a good meeting with him or her, and just go through the script and see what they want, see what they're thinking. And then a lot of times the director and the actors have two different ideas, so you kind of have to mitigate that between them and be like, no, well, the director really wants this, or the actor really wants this. So yeah, that's the the breakdown, and then you start going prop shopping, And back in the day, it was a lot different. You had a book called the New York 411 Guide, I think, or something, and it was the film, and it had all the companies that everybody would use. And so I guess from the 60s, 70s, 80s, they used this book. And so if you needed like a steamer or a giant letter or something, you go, there's State Supply. Let's get it from State Supply. They have something. That all changed, obviously, right when I was getting into the industry and went digital. And now everybody just orders off Amazon.
Oh God.
Yeah. There's no going out into the world and searching. There still is, but so yeah, that was the fun part of like shopping for these things, finding these really ridiculous pieces that you could turn into something else, or the joy of finding this one item that you probably will never see again in your life, or so yeah, that's kind of the gist. You do the breakdown, you talk to the director, you talk to the actors, make sure everybody's on the same page, and then you just start picking off stuff and making day bins, baby.
So everything you're doing back then, this is non-union, correct?
Yeah.
How many people are in your department? You?
Yep. Come on, guys.
And I guess,
Is this a shitty Rigs
we can use that to transfer in. Like, how did getting into the union change your job for you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think when you're young and you're hungry and you found something finally, especially me as a human being, found something that really drove me and I really wanted to put all my energy into and become good at, I think that sometimes puts the blinders on and you just put your head down and you work. But yeah, you do everything. You do everything on those small films. You are the effects people. You are the prop person. You are sometimes the on-set dresser, because sometimes they won't even hire an on-set dresser, So the difference obviously is the money, and once you get your card, all those. I did a bevy, just like tons of $1 million movies or sub-million, 500,000, sort of in that half Nelson period, where you just did everything. And you would do a period piece, and you'd have to go grab all. I remember grabbing lots of eBay. Luckily was a thing, so I could get a lot of stuff there. But you would just go to antique shops and be like, I need this weird antique watch for somebody, and so that's for me that's always the fun part, is the shopping and the putting together what it's going to look like on camera, and then down the road you do some camera tests, and then you start the process. But
in that world, like in the film world, are you sort of making the decision? So if, like, for instance, the watch, you're just getting the watch for the character, you're not going out and buying 17 watches and then
depends.
It's a little different than commercial world, right? You have a little more.
Yeah, I mean, especially the films, because that's where I came from, is like the indie film world. So you didn't have the budget to buy 17 watches. You could buy, like I remember for Half Nelson, Ryan really wanted a calculator watch, and so
still does.
Fucking
still waiting for it.
So he was like, go, and it was not terribly easy to find just because it was such a thing of the past.
It's a Casio.
Casio with
exactly.
the little, yeah.
But then
We all know the brand. That's
Oh yeah, keyboards. You need a keyboard, good Casio. You need a watch, Casio. But yeah, there's a huge difference between the two. Like all those indie film days, you're just hustling. You're nonstop hustling. You're trying your best to always say yes. You know, always have a backup. Always say yes. That was always my rule. And keep your hands out of your pockets. Those are my three things that I tried to live by. And, if anybody would ask, PA or whatever, I'd be like, just keep your hands out of your pocket, act like you're always engaged, and you'll be good.
But did you find the watch for Ryan Gosling?
I brought the No, I didn't.
It's been in my ass.
It's been in my butt. Wrong movie. No, I should have brought the crack pipe. I have the crack pipe at home. I didn't even think about it.
God, how'd you not bring a crack pipe to this podcast?
I used fake crack pipe.
from that movie.
From that movie.
Yeah.
I mean, that's Half Nelson is. Not only did I get to prop it and get to meet all these amazing people that I still talk to today, and still talk about that film, and still, we just had an anniversary where a lot of us got together on a Zoom during COVID. Went to Sundance with them. It's one of the rare films, on bigger stuff, typically, unless you're one of the above the liners, which I know we don't talk about on this podcast, but you don't get to do that stuff. But since it was so good with the, Brian and Anna and the directors and the producers, and we just were all friends. So luckily I got to go to Sundance with that, but Half Nelson changed my life in a lot of ways. I was doing a lot of music then. I really wanted to be a musician. I've had these swings. I'm a dabbler. I call myself a dabbler. I've had these swings of like, no, I'm going to be a musician. I love Elliott Smith. I'm going to be Elliott Smith. Yeah.
Going for that EGOT.
Do with that what you'd like. Yeah. So I was doing music and then working on this film, and we all kind of knew, this is the only film that I'd worked on that within a week we'd cut 2 days off the schedule. Which never, ever happens.
Because you were doing so well.
Because
not because you ran out of money.
Yeah, that
there's
never happens.
There's multiple reasons to,
yeah. So I've been on those too. Yeah. No, but it was just because you have a pro like Ryan Gosling who just gotten off The Notebook and, had a lot of success with that and, was just ready to pop as like a huge celebrity. And then, so between him being on point on everything he does, and then every department, even though we're young, even though we're shooting on film, we're still, everybody's just locked in. So we knew that something was going to happen with it that would be very successful. But back in the early days, I remember prepping for that. And one of the things was, Ryan was coming into the office, and I was like, Ryan, today we're going to have to test out some drugs, which is not something you say at Starbucks. Not
at the counter, out back.
So I was like, let's try something, because he really, he's one of the most method actors I've ever worked with. He just is in it all the time. To the point where when we're doing some of these scenes where he's smoking crack and stuff, he's like so wide-eyed that he's not in there, and I'd have to go into the bathroom really quietly and like reach to his hand and like put the crack pipe in and like put his hand down and then get out, because he didn't want anything to break that because he was so in the moment. And it shows on camera, like he is a genius when it comes to this stuff. Like he's so good. But I remember, one of the things when you're prepping is like you got to, especially when a movie with a lot of drugs, you got to make sure that it looks real. So I had purchased all of these, I talked to Jose and I'd say, hey, what would you do? And
you got a crack guy?
Yeah. And
he lives in Jersey.
remember when he got lost in Jersey City? So we start to sit down and just start. It's crazy. It's crazy to say out loud. I just start pouring lines of all these things that I've gotten. And so, like, his thing was that he really wanted that bite that you get when you snort coke. Like, and for those of you, I'm sorry.
So he wanted coke. He just wanted coke.
That's fine.
Well,
they have way worse shit.
That's how you lose your job, unfortunately, if you give them the real stuff. But so we're sitting at a table, and I'm just like doling out these lines of. Just like whatever I know won't kill this.
That's what. Yeah, you have to look that up.
What are you lining out? I guess
so. The one that we ended up going. I don't remember the options, but I remember the one that people used to use is called MSM, and it's like a supplement for your bones.
It's like, I thought it was like B12 was like the popular.
Yeah, I think it's kind of the same in the same world, but he liked that one specifically because it had a little bite and it made him react. When he did it. So obviously we sat there and I would do it with him because I was the prep guy. And if he was going to die, I was going to die with him because I didn't want to have that on my...
Yeah.
It's like Russian roulette.
I want it to be Ryan Gosling and the prop master died. Not like prop master kills Ryan Gosling.
Yeah. And it's like...
Weird murder-suicide.
Like, I would have loved to see Notebook 2, but that fucking prop master gave him something... So that's one of my best memories of just sitting there with Ryan. Right, he was always an amazing dude and really lifted people up. And
was there like a medic close by, or was it just like two of you locked in a room?
not even like locked
there's
in
not,
the room.
But there's like not.
In my
no
mind,
one else
I'm like
is there.
envisioning a production office. They're in like a glass conference room.
That's exactly
and
kind of what
just
it was.
blowing lines.
Shut the curtains real quick.
It's like 9:45 in the morning. Or something.
Yeah.
And everyone in the office is like, yeah, this is
what it is.
This is kind of normal.
But yeah, I mean, that's
pictures up in a half hour, guys. Let's move along.
It's fun to work with people like that, especially like Ryan and Anthony Mackie, who's been friend for years. He's like blown up too, but those guys really take their craft seriously, and it was amazing just to work beside them and fuck up a little bit here and there and see how to fix it and how other people would react to it and do it. And oddly enough, during the filming of that, the directors were looking for soundtrack music, and so they took my iPod at the time, and I had my own music on there, and they're like, "Oh, we're going to use some of your music in the film." And I was like, "This is the best movie ever."
You want some Coke?
And Sundance? And Coke?
You're like, wait, that's not Coke. That's B12.
Yeah. I mean, if your joints are hurting, by all means. So yeah, that was one of the ones that I hold on the upper echelon, and it was he was nominated for an Oscar and well deservedly lost, I think, to the guy who did. Anyway.
And
the guy, he did a ninja film same year, whatever.
Ninja film?
Or like a samurai film.
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
He has a lazy eye.
Forrest Whitaker.
Yeah, whatever that movie was.
samurai film.
Forrest Whitaker did a samurai movie?
Yeah, he won the Oscar.
Voice of God.
I don't know.
Anyone?
Do we stop and?
No, this is what Alan's here for.
Nice.
I'm working on it.
Yeah, 2006 it was released.
On that movie, so I want to tie this back to someone else we had on the podcast, Smokey. That's where you first met Smokey on that movie.
The legend, the man.
Yeah.
Yeah. The ceiling crawler, as we call him.
Ceiling crawler.
Jesus Christ.
And I feel like, maybe I'm wrong and Smokey will correct me, but I feel like that's where he created this light that he was famous for, this oyster light. It was like basically a piece of foam core with a half china ball and a bulb in it, and he would just tape them places.
See, I was so into it, of my stuff. I don't know if I It doesn't sound familiar to me, but I believe
Yeah.
100% that sounds just like something Smokey would do. But yeah, that guy's amazing. His whole crew, and shout out to Aaron Randall, who we lost a couple years ago, and he was on that too, and he was a grip, I think, electric maybe. But
On that level, they're all the same. Like,
it's like you calling us art department. You know what I mean?
No,
it's like it just happens. And yes, we are, and yes, kind of electric and grip are the same, but yeah, it's
hair and makeup.
You're just not as mean about it. That's the difference.
we can't. Yeah,
Like when someone comes up to a grip and they're like, "Hey, can I get something to plug this in?" They just go,
how about this? Yeah,
"Up your ass."
there's something to be said about that though, of having that level.
Props is like, actually, you want to talk to that person over there.
Yeah, do not ask that grip. Yeah.
It was Forrest Whitaker won for The Last King of Scotland.
The Last King of Scotland. So maybe not a samurai.
Yeah, not a samurai. So
I didn't watch it because I was revolting against Ryan losing.
And then you change all the information about it just to mislead people.
That's
so
right.
they never find the
it's
movie.
like a samurai movie. Yeah. But he does have a sword in it, I believe.
In Scotland? Yeah, probably.
The famous Scottish katana.
It's passed down generation after generation.
Highlander?
It's how they get knighted in Scotland. When you're on a set, like which department are you dealing with mostly? Are you just mainly working with actors and with like art department?
Props.
Or
He's in
just-
props.
No, I meant like like you said you weren't familiar with like, you know, the oyster light that Smokey had made. So I imagine like you knew him just kind of being on set with him, but it didn't sound like you guys always spent a lot of time together, because I feel like there's always departments that kind of communicate
Which,
a lot
I mean,
together.
it is something to be said that there are crazy things happening in every department that you can be completely oblivious of, even on a small set, which is, it's like kind of crazy. Like you're so into
But, yeah, you're
figuring
also-
out your own problems,
Exactly.
you're not paying attention to somebody else's.
Yeah. So
Which,
we were.
I mean, good on them for not.
Yeah. And we
bleeding
were
over.
cordial, and we would talk, and we'd hang out after, and you know, we went on to do Sugar and like that movie where I traveled all over the country, over the world, and not all over the world, but Dominican Republic, and then a lot of the
Ohio.
states.
Yeah, to Ohio.
Iowa.
Iowa.
Listen, I'm an Ohioan. Yeah. I've completely lost my train of thought because you brought up Ohio. I'm thinking about Cincinnati chili now.
We were talking about just like all the craziness could be happening on set, and you're so into it, and like you were cordial with the guys, and then you got to travel, work with them on Sugar and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so.
Smokey in general, and specifically, like that guy is a genius. I think he's so smart and doing what he does, and I know he does DP stuff now, and he's shooting, and but you know, back then it was Andre was the DP, Andre, and he. So I knew a lot of those. I knew everybody. You know, it's a crew of 30 main people, so we see each other every day for 12, 14 hours a day. And so, you know, I was cordial, but yeah, some of the detail work of the electric and grip stuff, I don't think I would have gotten, but.
I think you can work with Smokey and not understand what he's doing. Like you can be like his direct, like right hand man and be like, "What the fuck is happening over there?"
But it always works out. That's what I always say on film.
Eventually,
it's
like, you
going to work out.
You just gotta like figure it out, you know?
Yeah. Yeah,
It's like working with anyone new. Like you're like, you gotta get on their level, especially if they're like just this like crazy, just continually going. You're like, okay, I gotta catch up here.
Yep. I had a DP once that carried around a small dog the entire day. That was in elementary.
That's how. That's just how. Like
Interesting.
they want you to remember them. Like
Yeah.
that.
It must be.
There was a director that I worked with. He wore a weight vest. From the safety meeting in the morning until they called camera wrap, and then he took it off on set. Like made a show of it. But like you knew that he was wearing a weight vest because he wanted to put in the work like everyone else.
You would like drop it.
Back in my day, we just had a PA
he's
that
like,
would come grab on your back.
This
Hang
makes
on.
me feel like I'm doing something. Like I see all the people lifting heavy shit, and I'm
Yeah.
wearing this weighted vest.
He got them all for the department heads as a wrap gift. I thought it was the most absurd thing, and that like, what grip wants to put on another 40 pounds to work for a full fucking day?
Yeah,
or
and if they're
whatever,
gonna do it, they want to do it drinking beer and just snorting cocaine.
Yeah. Speaking of rap gifts, I got, I don't know if you guys have horrible rap gifts, but I once got a safety vest as a rap gift with the word elementary on the back.
Shut up.
I should have worn it.
Like just
Like a
orange.
see-through.
It was like the company
$3.
wrap gift.
That was the company wrap gift. $3 like reflective mesh top. And we used them.
Yeah, that might be worse than
Shoot.
the Americans gave keychains one year.
Keychains?
Yeah.
Why?
Why
exactly.
a safety vest?
That'd be like giving you your lanyard that you had to wear.
Here's
with
your
you.
ID badge from the show.
And that's what it was. Like we were working on the water with boats, and they're like, "You guys have to wear these." And by the way, half of them are branded with elementary. That's your wrap gift.
Wow.
Some people
Fight.
didn't even get the
Fight.
elementary on the back.
They just kind of
generic.
Generic $3 Amazon. Yeah.
Oh my god.
So it's a varied bunch, but
Well, before we jump into elementary, I'm curious to hear about like how your sort of journey was moving from indie films and then getting into the union. Like, was that always sort of your objective? It's like, I'm going to do indie films for a while and then join the union, or did that just kind of happen?
no, I think it was it was much harder to get into the union, I think, a decade ago, 2 decades ago. So I always wanted to be in the union. Obviously I wanted those benefits. I wanted somebody fighting for me. I wanted, however you feel about them, I wanted somebody on my side because I had done all these jobs where you work for $100 a day and you work 14, 16 hours a day and you go home and you work and you hear the walkie chirp in your ear when you're sleeping and you can't get rid of it. And so I think after doing so many of indie films and just one after another, I would never stop. I hit a wall and I was just like, well, one, I love doing it and I'm good at it, but I don't know if this is my sort of lifelong thing. So, but yeah, I mean, I definitely wanted to get into the union at that point and I wanted the benefits and I wanted to work on bigger things. I felt like I had grown to that point from faking my way into it to actually being a decent prop person. So
What was the first job that kind of got you there? Like when you got in and then you did your first like bigger job, there must have been a huge.
it's really elementary.
Yeah.
Because I had applied about 4 years before I got in. After working a decade in the industry, and the response from 52 was that you don't have enough New York film experience after 10 years of doing indie films in New York.
And they counted what, like call sheets and all that
Yeah,
stuff?
yeah, and but
You weren't someone's kid. That's what it really was. Yeah.
that was the good old boy days, as I say. But and for better or worse, I mean, they all fought the good fight mostly, and there's some bad eggs everywhere. But so that back then, I was like, I was begging to get into the union. I was like, I am the perfect fit for this. So I did, cough up the $5,000 or whatever it is to get in, and just made it a point to get in how I wanted to get in. If I'm not going to get in on the merit of a decade of work, then I'm going to put my head down and work more. So that's kind of what I did. And then at some point, I passed the test.
What is the prop test?
I'm
Yeah,
a little
I know,
removed,
but I've only heard like the electrics and grips
Yeah, I've
test.
only
So
heard the
but I
grip
know other
test.
departments have one. Like, do you have to like hang a light? Like,
No. It's just a gun on a table in the middle of the room.
whether or not you kill yourself.
It's just me and Barbara
Just one
Kastner.
bullet.
You got to identify the MSM line.
And if you get lucky and spin it the right way, then you get in. No, there's like sections. So you'd go in and they'd have a section for picture hanging, and they'd have a section for plumbing a sink, and they'd have a section for guns, and they'd have a section for, I don't know, but those were the 4 that I remember from mine. So, and then the written, which was like this Bible of hundreds of pages about furniture and shit that I just didn't even know, nor did I.
When did the union form? All the history and
Some
stuff.
of that stuff, but it was a lot of like, this chair is from what period of
Shut up.
Europe?
Crazy.
It's like art history almost.
But yeah, because it was a lot of like, art specific. Because I think it was all like it was outdated a little bit. I mean, I don't know if they even still do it like this, but yeah, you went to these stations, and I remember the first time I went to the stations. I think I passed everything. The picture hanging was a little rough because that's kind of hard, but I went and
That's harder than plumbing.
Yeah, because plumbing, you're just screwing shit together.
Okay,
yeah,
sure.
Put some tape on it. And I passed that one. I was surprised I passed it too. But listen, I haven't plumbed since then. Yeah, don't call me. Yeah, but
This sounds like a game show.
it kind of is. You walk in, there's
Someone's
a
like,
line.
start, and then you have to
Like,
run to each side.
The funniest thing about like these kind of tests, and I understand you want everybody to have like a basic knowledge of like everything your department does, but like in like when you're like building a set and there's like a linoleum floor, there's like a guy you call that is the linoleum floor guy. There is a tiling guy. There is a plumbing
Jim
like
Dolly guy.
So it's
There's
like
yeah.
like there are these people that like even within this department that are specialized, like they might not be on that crew full time because they're going to that next job to get that tiled set ready, and they're going to the next job out. Like that's the only part of like the set deck or whatever department handles it in New York does. So it's like, yeah, like, oh, I'm a set decorator, but all I do is flooring. Like, you know, it's like, so it's like to need to know it on the test to pass is kind of insane.
But
to
you
me.
should
Basic
know
knowledge.
about it so
Yeah.
that you know, like, oh, I need to call that guy because like this is
Yeah.
this is like a hardcore job, and I don't know how to
Yeah.
do
I
this.
mean, you have the book, bro. You have the New York Foreman. Yeah. But that's the that's the other thing is like, what were you just saying?
We were talking about the test beforehand. It sounded like you had a story about the actual test.
So the first time I went through, I go in and it's stressful, man. It's like, especially as a young kid, you've done all these things and you're like, but you go in there and you're nothing.
Very
You're
humbling.
just a person in a line. Yes. So I get in line, I'm doing my stuff, I get to the guns, and I accidentally point the gun at Barbara Kasner, who is the gun person in 52, an old prop, who now works for 52 and stuff. But so that was an immediate fail.
Yeah.
You cannot do that. And I grew up with guns. Like that was my strongest part of the test. And I ended up pointing it at the lady that ran the whole thing.
Oh, that's because you probably thought that's how I do it in New York.
Yeah, I was just like spinning it around. Like, that's how you do it.
yeah.
So obviously that was an instant fail, but you know, try again, and ended up getting it the second time. Plumbed that sink, hung that picture frame.
Or you have to do everything over again.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
and take the test.
Well, I
over
thought it
again.
was you did each station. You know, if you pass that station, now you need to pass this next one.
They,
And you point a gun at someone and you fail.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I understand
the
that.
only
But
one
then I
by the
thought,
way.
like, okay, now you only need to redo gun.
No,
Yeah.
I did it twice. Yeah, you do the whole thing over because you do the written over too. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, fuck.
Did they make you? So did the rooms with each stuff happen before the written test? Did you have to do the written test even after you failed the gun thing, or did they just immediately put you out of line?
Yeah, you don't know you failed.
Oh,
Yeah.
got it.
But I kind of knew because she said something about "don't point the gun at me." So that was kind of my first inclination that I was probably not going to be
You're
a
like,
member.
should I just leave now? No, carry on.
We want to see your plumbing.
Listen,
Damn.
yeah, good old days. But yeah, it's stressful. It's a stressful thing
Yeah,
to do.
for
It's
sure.
your whole entire livelihood is built up into this. You're surviving on $100 days. At that point, pre-union, you really want to have a savings account, have health insurance.
Mm-hmm.
You really want all these simple, basic things that we should all be getting.
Mm-hmm.
So in that respect, you have to keep doing it over and over until you pass. Luckily, it only took me twice, but some people I know have had a rough time, and it's changed. I have no idea how it is nowadays. Everything has changed in 52, but they're still out there working for you, the worker. So.
And then you pass this, and then do you like immediately get on a show, or is there like
Yeah, well,
is there like a bunch of like small jobs you have to take, and then you get to elementary?
honestly, I think maybe I even was non-union I can't remember when that came out, but I can't remember yesterday, let alone 2013, but I vaguely remember I'd worked a couple days non-union and then got my card, and then they were like, "Oh, as soon as you get your car, we'll hire you on full time." So I think that's what it was, where I started as just hands because the union was empty.
Like overhire list kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And then went to the full time hire because I ended up working on that job for 7 years, almost 8 years. We
Wow.
did 7 seasons, I think 8 years. No, 7 seasons, 7 years, I guess. It's all a blur, man. But yeah, so I think just that transition from finally having a card saying, hey, you did this thing, people have your back, you're going to get health insurance now. That was the huge thing of just
Yeah.
working in New York City on these tiny little jobs and chancing it, working in asbestos-filled buildings and working in, I was working on...
I mean, you still work on those when you're union too. But,
yes. Oh, yeah, yeah.
but they
you have insurance
they
now.
put blinders on you, so you don't
Yes.
see, you don't look
and
in that
supposedly
room.
they have an EPA person or somebody that goes in sometimes, and the locations people will go in and do the air test and do the air quality. Now, I have no idea if that means anything, but it might just be checking a box somewhere. But
They just identify it.
Yeah.
They don't actually fix it. Yeah.
I remember I was on Boardwalk Empire for a couple days, and we were in this old building in downtown Brooklyn, and we had just showed up. We just got all the carts out. We lined them up on the street, and the freaking ceiling fell in on some
Of the
people.
building?
Of the build, because it was 1930s, whatever, Boardwalk Empire time. And that was one of the greatest days ever because I got paid to rap in an hour.
Oh my god!
Because after it hit somebody, you can't just keep going. I guess they couldn't.
Did they get hurt like really bad?
I think it got bloodied, but I don't think it was.
Have you guys not worked on a show where the roof has collapsed?
No.
Oh, crazy. Okay. 50% though. That's pretty sad.
yeah, exactly.
I mean, you can even talk about like before DangerWorks was in this lovely studio, they had an old studio. Like Elementary used to shoot on their roof, and it's like you can talk about what was it like getting to the roof of this building where they kept the bees.
There was one freight.
If you wanted to call it a freight elevator.
Yeah.
But it shook.
Yeah.
It was almost like you had somebody up there pulling you up because it was like chipboard, I feel like, around it instead of like the padding. It was just like But yeah, I remember that taking time to wait in line to load into that elevator to make sure somebody didn't get stuck. And then at some point, I think like 2 or 3 seasons in, when we were, because we used that roof for a lot of the seasons, for the bees and for whatever beauty shots. But yeah, the at some point they started just forklifting, building out a forklift to look like a gated thing, and then they would just forklift everybody's carts up to the roof, like 4 stories, whatever, 5 stories. Whatever it was, which is
5 or
equally
6.
as sketchy.
It was
to
6
me.
stories. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to ride with them because I was like, like that.
Wait,
freaks
there
me
are
out.
people that rode on the forks?
Oh yeah,
Oh my god!
Yeah.
No way.
and
How
again,
is
maybe
that safe?
yeah,
How is that?
maybe that was
You
not.
build railings, and then
Yeah, there
it's,
was railings,
and then it's
yeah.
like the funniest thing to me about film production. I mean, no, this isn't the funny. There's tons of funny things. One of the things that always surprises me about film production is like the rigging crew goes in to make things safe for the shoot crew. Like the shoot crew is like the baby child that's like, hey, like sweetheart, don't hurt yourself, and the rigging crew like goes there 2 days beforehand, climbs up on the roof with no
see.
safety railings, is like pulling the fucking safety railings up the side of a building to then set them up so like these other like princess folk can show up and be like, oh, it's really nice and safe up here. And it's like, yeah, you didn't see the 9 hours of work it took like 5 people to fucking get this ready for you.
Yeah.
And it's like they're like, running cable through the asbestos rooms, and then when you show up for production, they're like, oh yeah, you guys aren't allowed back there. They're like, but all of our cabling goes through there. It's like, yeah, we don't talk about that. Like,
And that's a luxury too. Thinking about the films that we did, and then once getting to the union and doing those, like that is a luxury to have riggers.
yes.
Like a lot of times you show up and
You're
if you,
doing it all. Yeah.
yeah, and if something goes wrong, then that just gets tacked on to the end of the day. Then your day is like 18 hours.
Right.
Like
Damn.
yeah, it's and I think that's sort of what got to me, is like just the long. I think it's the ADHD, but I have a hard time of just sitting still and doing nothing. Like I like to be doing stuff.
Yeah.
So when I'm sitting on an apple box and 6 inches of snow, trying to reset a car or something, it's like I would rather. There's so many things I would rather be doing. But again, I'm thankful that I had those apple boxes to sit
Yeah.
on. So
All right. So speaking of like sketchy locations and weird things, what's like some of the weirder props you've had to source, or like requests you've had? Because I mean, I've been on some weird ass shows. Like I've worked on Harchie Holler, and
yeah,
I remember there was one scene where they're like, we need 100 singing bass fish.
yeah.
And you're just like, where do you get that?
Yeah. So I did a job that had a scene where about 100 vibrators had to wash up on shore. So not only do you have to source 100 vibrators, and luckily we got product placement, which is one of those.
Perfect.
Yeah. And I don't know how, it's like product placement is awesome. You get a lot of free stuff and good stuff, but then it's like, there's not a logo on that vibrator. It's like, how are they getting any value for
That
this?
shape is trademarked.
I guess. Yeah. No, it was the rabbit. No,
There you go.
Sex in the City. Shout out. But yeah, stuff like that where I've had to like source dozens, hundreds of things.
So wait, what? Let's go back to the vibrator.
You're just glossing over
You're
it.
just like,
Okay.
They're
so
waterproof.
you sourced 100 vibrators,
Yeah.
and then you put them in the ocean, and then
They're
wash
supposed
up
to
on
be
shore.
washing up on shore. And I don't know if you know the ocean, but
Yeah, it doesn't really work that way.
Can't really
doesn't
control it.
work with you. So she was waking up from like a spoiler alert, waking up from a daydream and or in a daydream, and all of a sudden the surf comes in and it's just full with buzzing vibrators, and sourcing those was fun. Just finding somebody who would be like, hey, we'll send you like 100. And then at the end of the show, being like, who
Rap
once
games.
used sandy ocean water from... nobody did. We ended up throwing them away.
Oh god.
But
In the ocean, just back.
the other thing about the ocean is it's pretty unforgiving. So we lost a ton of them.
Oh my God.
Like I don't even remember what it was, but I'm sure there is some... God.
They're all in Dead Horse Bay now.
Yeah, but I'm sure there's some like young family like splashing in the water. I just see it in my mind.
Is that a seashell? They pick it up.
But yeah, there's lots of stuff like that. I mean, it's that's the best part of the job, to be honest, is just finding. I had to on elementary. We had to make a extinct animal, so we made this thing called a quagga, which is now, I guess they've made it again through genetic something or another. I read, but
It's real.
it now again is real. It was real, then it wasn't real, and then now they've found the DNA and extracted it and made a new one. But
Yeah, perfect.
but it's basically like a zebra, like a ginger zebra kind of.
Ginger.
So it's a red stripe instead of a
Kind
black
of like
stripe.
a very light brownish, striped zebra. So we had to make, had an animatronic guy make it, and then on set, I'm the one in the straw under the thing, making the tail whip
Nice.
and making the eyes open and making the things, and so it's all kinds of stuff like that. I did a film called, I don't know if we want to jump to it, but I did a film called Cold Souls where, the whole premise of the movie was Paul Giamatti. He played himself, which was a lot of fun. Rarely do you get to prop up an actor who was just playing himself. One of the greats too. He's amazing. But the theme of the film is to unburden yourself. You can store your soul in these soul storage companies. So it's basically like a cryo locker, and they put your soul in there, and everybody's soul's different. The joke in this is that Paul Giamatti's was a chickpea. So it's just a chickpea in a jar. But then again, it's like you have to design all that. You have to design, to match this huge machine that they made that looks like a space laser or something crazy. Like, but you have to source all that. So you have to get the glass made. I had to contact specific, I think it was out in Denver somewhere, that made glass canisters. And I said, I got this weird thing. And that's typically how most of my phone calls would work. It's like I just start with, you're not going to hear this again today. But I'm going to need like 300 jars. Custom made, custom blown glass.
Oh wow.
Because, like they wanted like some of them to have like a little teardrop upside down in the glass. So you source all that out. You try to get something that's in budget. Again, it's an indie movie, so you're trying to work. You have that against you, where you can go somewhere and be like, yeah, throw money at it, but you don't have that luxury, unfortunately, on indie movies. So you find the right place. I think I went through a couple and tried to find this one place that would do it for the right amount, and then each of them had to have a cap or a top on it, so I had to get custom silver spun caps for them, and then I think Smokey was on that.
I'm just like, so
I
you do
think
all
that-
this, and then like, what happens to it? You know, do you keep these things?
I
Or-
have one. I kept one. But no, a lot of it you give to the crew and the directors and, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's an asset list in the prop department where if you spend over $100, $200 on an item, they're going to expect that back at the end of the show. But, it's a very wasteful industry.
Yeah.
We throw away a lot of stuff and we donate a lot of stuff too. But, so at the end of the job, people just want to get out of there. They just want to leave. They don't, and they'll take what they want. And then there's this huge pile of weird stuff.
Yeah.
That you have to do something with. So, but yeah, that was one of the ones where you really had to, you could get creative. I went to Chinatown, I got some herbs, got some weird, like veiny, weird stuff that you would never see in a supermarket. And then I would add, sort of add some of the ideas where maybe it's sitting on something, maybe it's a strip of metal that's curved in there, maybe it's just food coloring.
Yeah.
But I remember we were going to shoot it, I think on Monday, and I hadn't had a lot of them done. So on Sunday, I'm on set. It wasn't shooting or anything, but I was just on set making these huge, just weird canisters full of stuff. And I gave you guys some photos if you want to throw them up. But it's just interesting. It's just fun that's what you want to do, right? When you get into this, especially as a prop, you want to do these creative things that really push what you can do, and yeah, it was very collaborative and very fun. But that's one of those that I'll never forget. And yeah, I kept one. I kept the I think it was like the black food coloring one. And
Do you keep something from every show? Because you got a crack pipe and now you got a glass jar.
yeah, let's see.
You kept the vibrator for sure.
Do you keep the crack pipe in the glass jar? Like, is that your soul?
It's all one. I nest them like Russian
It's
nesting
like a
dolls.
time capsule.
Ryan Gosling's Casio watch, his crack pipe. No, but yeah, it depends. A lot of stuff, obviously, like I said, it's kind of a wasteful industry where some people do donate, but then some people just throw it in a dumpster. So
I always wonder about the assets because there are some
Yeah.
things that like production will asset and take
Oh, yeah.
back, and you're like, there's no way they're doing anything with that.
and it's not worth what they think it's worth. Yeah, it's like, all right, you want to use something that was on set for 14 hours, and is so yeah. But again, that is the battle of production versus the departments. I feel like is trying to get to a solution where everybody's happy.
It also must cost so much money in labor and like whatever the software and all this labeling that you're doing. Whereas like if they factored that in, like the amount of time
Yeah.
that it takes you to do that,
Right.
it's probably
time,
not, it's
yeah.
probably not actually worth doing that for
Yeah.
90% of the things.
How many shots were these glass jars in?
Well,
It was like a scene.
it was in his doctor's office. So it was like, and then I had to do, so the flip side of that, the story goes, and if you want to watch the movie, this is going to spoil it, but
fine.
there's,
Spoiler.
yeah, nobody cares. But there's, his soul gets lost. Paul Giamatti's soul gets lost and gets shipped to the Jersey warehouse.
Always back to Jersey.
Turns out the Jersey
Worst place
warehouse
to be.
is Russia. So they do a whole shoot in Russia. I didn't get to go, unfortunately. But
Wait, they actually went to Russia?
they actually went to Russia, shot with Russian actors, shot this whole thing. But so we had
in
made...
Indy.
Yeah. Well, again, this is like, it's just one of those weird things where like some of these jobs will have those like
Yeah.
1 week units where it's
Yeah.
like, hey, we're going to Dubai or we're going to, but yeah, it's,
Soul gets shipped to Jersey.
Soul gets shipped to Jersey, and that in the story is actually Russia. So we had to make a Russia version of a warehouse that's kind of the mirror of the doctor's office. So I have a similar version, but we kind of cheapened the Russian ones. So the jars were a little shitty. I don't know why. And I think somebody was Russian, so they didn't really care. It's not like we were insulting anybody, but it was just a less polished version. David Strathairn played the Soul Doctor, who is one of the most incredible character actors. He's just a legend in my eyes, but and one of the nicest guys I've ever worked with. I worked with him on several things, but yeah. So I had to do this whole wall of Russian souls, which I'd for those I'd order different things. I'd order like specific Russian specific things, so it would be
Nesting dolls.
yeah, just weird.
Fabergé egg.
Yeah, anything borscht. I don't know, is that Russian? Just a big old jar of borscht. But yeah, I mean that's the fun part, man. Is making the stuff, and I have the drawing. I think I may have shared it with you. The concept that I drew out by hand to get the jars made, and the silver aluminum caps custom made, and that's definitely the.
I guess in like a more
part.
like when you're dealing with like a movie that's more futuristic, it's kind of leaning heavily on you versus something that's set in the modern world where it's like you're just like sourcing what everyone knows.
I guess for that too, how much input, like, was it your concept?
It's you take it from the director initially. It's like they have an idea of what it would look like. In this specific case, the director was less hands-on. The designer, my friend Beth, between us, I think we came up with sort of a concept for what it would look like between the director, the production designer. So that was kind of a collaborative thing. But then I sort of took off with it and had the production made, and then started filling them with weird goo. So that was the fun part. But yeah, man, it's weird. You just do some weird stuff. Like I still have the head of the quagga in my house, so you can still work the eyes a little bit. Put your hand in there like a puppet.
Just when friends come over.
Yeah. So
Nice.
yeah, I do keep. There's some stuff I keep here and there from jobs, but it's always typically going to be tossed or thrown in the dumpster. So I don't.
Do you have a warehouse of stuff where you keep generic props, or you don't even bother?
I used to have a store. That was one of my best days of my life, was getting rid of my storage.
It's like the best day is getting it and getting rid of it.
Yeah. It's like I really loved having just a $200 a month storage unit full of weird stuff, but again, it all comes back to those rents, and it's hard to pay rent doing some of these smaller jobs. So it was a great day when I got to get rid of it. And then you go out to a dumpster and you start throwing stuff in, and it's like, oh, well, there's the box of sandy dildos, and there's the quagga head, and there's the
Just going through the memories of all the jobs you worked through.
Oh yeah. That's it.
Does props ever do like stoop sales, or is that a thing?
We do end of job sales, set sales, but it's usually with everybody else. I guess maybe it's not, but sometimes they time it where it's after wrap and costumes are selling and props are selling, art department's selling. I did the WeWork movie for Apple Plus, and that had one of the craziest set sales because.
Just computers and shit, right?
Well, it's just like it was the that maniac guy who got like $5 billion in funding and then just spent it all on like pool tables and the creator of WeWork. But so it was just weird stuff like that, dartboards, giant signs with just weird numbers and letters, and but yeah, I just remember going to that set sale and there was just like 100 planters, self-watering planters. I was like, oh. Take a couple of those. $2. Okay.
Happy birthday, babe.
Yeah. But yeah.
Are there any prop requests that you get that are just like kill you every time, or like make your job harder?
There's one thing that I don't like to do, and I always try to pass this off, which is the wheel dollies. So we have these things on, like for shooting on a stage like this, we'd roll a car in and it can't have much gas in it. You'd have to have very little just because, if it blows up, it'll kill everybody. But so there's rules about that. You got to get with the key grip and all the safety people and say, hey, I'm pulling in this car and I want to do it this date. And so yeah, there's these wheel dollies basically, and they grab around the wheel and then you like crunch it down. So and then you start lifting up the wheel of the car, and then you can just move it, spin it 360 in a set. They're fun, but they are such a pain in the ass to carry around, to like get off the truck. There's a dolly that goes with them. And, I'm talking to some grips and electrics here. So I'm not trying to make it sound like it was the worst thing in the world, but that was my least favorite.
No, but I feel like Grip and Electric always got roped into helping too, because it's like the on-set dresser or picture card. There's one, and you have to do it for all four. And there are two pieces for each wheel, right? Like they go around.
There's four, one each wheel.
Also, you're doing
Maybe
that. You probably got like 4 grips staring at you when you're doing that.
Oh, yeah.
You're like, he's doing it wrong.
First, the ones we used on elementary had like wire tied to them, and like they would work most of the time, and then sometimes they get stuck, and the whole crew be standing there watching us, being like, "Get it off the thing, we're ready to turn around." But yeah, so there's stuff like that, gear like that.
That's
really
interesting.
just drove
That
me
props is so because it's that prop car or picture car. You're in charge of.
Yeah, it's kind of in that director chair realm of weird stuff. But yeah, I mean, we do earplugs for actors and stuff like that. So if we're doing a gun scene, you go around to everybody in the crew. You guys probably know this, and there'll be one prop that's like, do you want eye protection? Do you want ear protection?
Yeah.
For the safety of the
Masks
crew.
for cigarettes.
Yep.
Yep.
You're a pussy. No. I've breathed in so much bad shit over the years. I am surprised that my lungs, and with all the other extracurricular stuff that I do with my lungs, it's like I'm surprised that one of these things haven't. I mean,
you'll find out in like 10 years. You have some rare
It'll
form
be like, were you working on the set of Elementary?
Did that ceiling fall on you?
So how much picture car stuff do you do? Is that a good mix of like the work that you do?
Well, I sort of, when you're doing indie stuff, you do everything. So you're the picture car coordinator, you're the prop master, you're the sometimes set person, you're whatever. So I had a lot of experience. Cars is a huge part of the prop department. So yeah, I mean, I sort of grew up around, and my brothers were really big into cars and would build them. I was more of an indoor kid. So I like dealing with computers.
You watch cars on TV.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'd race one in F1. But yeah, so it just was something that I seemed to be good at, and I could source them. And I had a really good picture car source. Shout out to Craig and Topo Customs out in New Jersey. He's a legend. But yeah, so that's part of it is sourcing these cars. And one of the last jobs I did most recently was called Hello Tommorow. And it's basically the Jetsons in real life, kind of. And it's about a guy selling timeshares on the moon. And so it's all futuristic. It's all like the 50s futuristic Jetsons look. And so we had to create all these vehicles and spend a lot of money on all of these vehicles that were period vintage, like delivery trucks that we would mod to have like newspapers shooting out of it, and float. All of them had to float. There was a flying, nobody had wheels, so everybody was a flying car. So you had to kind of, what's that?
Float.
Yeah. Yes. Digitally float. All they did was paint it out. I don't think there was any.
It's the same height as a normal car, which is the funniest part.
When I got on that job, I was like, let's figure it out. Let's figure out how to do this for real. There has to be a magnetic version. Let's just get plates under all the cars and we'll float those things around. That did not go. That didn't work. But yeah, it's like that's part of the fun part. I worked on this job called Hello Tommorow, and very picture car heavy. I ran the picture car department. So we were sourcing crazy vehicles like 1940s stretch limos and period fire trucks and period just like random oil tankers and like just crazy. And most of it was floating. I think the oil tanker was not, but that's kind of the fun part, working with somebody to be like, hey, here's the ideas that everybody has. Here's what I have found via my research. Can we get close to this, or do we need to pivot and do a different version, because it's always changing and it's always evolving as far as the money side and the what exactly they want. Sometimes it's one thing, and then 2 days later they've rewritten it and it's completely different. But yeah, that was the fun part, man, is making these cars fly. So to speak. Was
modding them your department's job, or was it another section of the art department kind of like? Yeah,
they were in the scenic department. So that we hired specialty scenic foam carvers. And so a lot of these, so the gist was we would black out the wheels for the background ones, and then in the foreground they would have these things called maglevs, magnetic levitation devices on each wheel. That was our story point. So we had these maglevs built, and they would just come. I'd get the car in there early. They would measure all the sides of the vehicles and the wheel wells. Everyone was different. We had Skylarks, we had a whole bunch of different period vehicles. So they had to hand carve each one of these. And I think we got up to like 12 vehicles with these maglevs on it, or 10, and then just hit the budget. And they're like, no, we're
done.
We're not going to do any more of those. But it was expensive. You're hiring somebody to work a week on building 4 of these maglevs out of foam, and then having them dipped in chrome, and then figuring out the magnetic angle. Luckily, we bought a lot of these cars, which is a rarity on a lot of jobs. They don't have the budget to do that. But yeah, we bought a lot of these, and we could drill into them, and we could use magnets that would scratch them up, and it wouldn't matter. But yeah, man, just being able to drive some of these.
Like, how do you just sourcing all of those cars from that period? Like,
and
you
in
must
the
have had
Northeast,
this like wide, that aren't
the
rust
Northeast
buckets.
sucks.
I think we got one from Texas. I think we got one and we have this Craig, which I mentioned before. Him and his coworker would go out and basically fly out and just flatbed the trucks home, or drive the flatbed to Iowa or wherever it was, and pick up this huge grain truck. And then other ones were stuff that the picture car supplier, Craig, could find, and then we could sort of fit to our, what it needed to be. Like one of the first Suburbans we had in there, and we just wrapped it in green to make it look sort of period, and put period graphics on it. And so that's a whole nother level of, nowadays you could just throw wrap on something, vinyl wrap. Before we'd have to paint the car. I remember I did a job called The Messenger, and I had to paint vehicles. And I was just like, this is the craziest thing. Just having not only to buy the vehicle, but now I have to paint it to a specific color because he was a veteran. And so it's a lot, man. It's a lot that goes into just seeing that one vehicle on the camera,
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah. 10 episodes, you see the same background cut. That fucking car is always following.
And on period pieces, it's just like that. If you really look, a lot of times they're reusing. I had 2 blocking trucks, period blocking trucks, and when we had something we couldn't see, like you'd pull up that blocking truck, and we'd throw some guys with some dollies in the back, and they were doing something. I don't know what they were doing in the background, but yeah, there's lots of those crazy things. But I got to buy an Urkel car. I don't know if you remember that car that was on Urkel that he drove. That the front flips open.
Oh, yeah.
It's called an Izetta.
Izetta? That's what it's called?
And now they're making electric Izettas that are exactly the same with the front flips open.
So weird.
Full circle.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe Urkel will do a modern day reboot.
I think
if they don't get him to
do the
promote
commercial,
that thing, I don't know what they're doing. That's a huge missed opportunity.
He's selling
the
weed
car.
now.
Yeah, make him come out as a Stefan.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Dude, you'd sell some cars that way.
Right?
Yeah. He's selling weed now. Purple Urkel is his weed strain.
Really?
Yeah.
Of course, they all have fucking. Doesn't Mike Tyson sell like
Oh,
ear
yeah.
gummies?
Oh yeah. Bitten ear gummies. Yeah. Yeah. God bless that man.
What kind of stuff do you like always have when you're working between movie to movie? Like, what is essential for you guys?
Well, I mean, we can do the top drawer of the prop cart. All right, there's a lot. That drawer is always packed because it's the.
You can use another drawer.
Well, the other ones are very specific. Like top drawer.
Second drawer is empty. Like they're like, don't
Drawer
put
has
anything.
nothing. Yeah. Second drawer is always paperwork. Okay. So it has like paperwork if you're doing like a procedural and you need a cop paperwork. You just pull from the second drawer, and there's third drawer is always character pouches. So all of the actors have their own pouch with their own props, rings, watches, any key things if they have toothpicks in every scene or whatever. And then the bottom is fake guns, which we call gubs on set.
Gubs?
Yeah.
UBS?
I've never heard that.
Gubs. Well, it's like there came a point when talking about guns on set was a little iffy, so we just that was our code word. I don't know if everybody does it or
That's just your crew.
could be a elementary gub thing. Shout out to Sarah Bricker; she'll know what I'm talking about. But top drawer, and then so the bottom drawer is like fake guns, and then the bigger stuff that you can't hold. So top drawer is always the most important in my mind. It's one of my favorite parts of the job is keeping that very organized, because as you know, on a film set, no matter how much you love your carts, there's one day that you're just going to be like, I want to set it on fire. But in that top drawer, I mean, there's stuff like Top Stick, which is a industry favorite, which is, for clothing or to hold a wig down or whatever. We use it for everything, though. Graphics sometimes, if we don't have a sticky graphic, we'll just, And then, like, there's something called museum gel, which is a fun thing that's always in the top drawer, which is a really clear putty, basically see-through putty that you can mount it's for museums, so you can mount like precious artifacts and they won't fall over, or they'll stay in their place or whatever. But there's lots of and then obviously you gotta have like 80 different kinds of tape on the tape roll. Still got my tape roll.
A preferred tape that props uses over other tapes, because like
yes.
I know, like,
prop departments always love neon 2-inch gaff tape. I don't know if you noticed this on their bins.
Pink. Oh yeah, I guess neon pink I've seen a bunch. Yeah.
And I don't know if that's just like became a prop thing, but every truck I've seen in the last decade has neon yellow, green, pink tape labeling everything. So I don't know, maybe that's somebody else has insight on that. Just reply in the comments.
Yeah. Tell us your tape color.
What's your favorite on-set tape? So there's lots of other things like glasses kits and ring sizers and
sizers for like measuring rings for actors. Okay.
Yeah, and then we'll have a whole box of wedding rings and watches. And obviously, if it's a character thing, we shop that in advance. But we also do have a tray or two of these basic things. So if somebody's needs to be married,
it's kind of like Mary Poppins cart. Like you just like you can just
it's kind of like
keep fucking pulling shit out.
It's right back to Inspector Gadget, baby.
Inspector Gadget would be a great props person.
Yeah, absolutely.
Need a light?
Yeah.
Make a phone call.
And that's the other thing. Cigarettes are in there. Gum for the actors. If the actors want gum for a scene or want fresh breath. Sometimes costumes, makeup do that. But there's lots of little intricate. I think it's amazing just to have. You can literally do anything with this drawer full of weird tchotchkes, from tapes to glues to magnifying glasses to. It's just like labels. You want a beer label real quick? Third drawer. Go pop in the graphics bin, pull out some beer labels. They're cleared. They're created for the film industry, and you can just plop them on. And
where do you source that stuff? Like the labels and like the cigarette labels? Is there a place that makes this stuff? Or
it depends. I mean, for the most part, you go to ISS or HPR out in LA. They have pre-made things that they'll just ship you that are vinyl or waterproof because you're doing booze. Back in the old days, I'd print them on the inkjet printers, and Ryan Gosling would go take a drink, and then the whole label would smear down the back of it. So that's how far we've come. So there's companies that will do newspapers, fake newspapers. One of the big things in the Bundys, Al Bundy would always hold the same newspaper over and over. I think it was Bundy. Somebody got outed recently about it's one newspaper. You always have the same newspaper for a decade.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's great. That's a nice Easter egg because no one was paying attention to that back then. If it was
right, it's some asshole rewatching a decade and a half later.
Yeah.
And if you go to hbr.com or issprops.com, you can see the cigarettes that the workaholics, or the beers that the workaholics drank on the roof. You can see that the fake whatever.
The clove cigarettes they were smoking.
Yeah. But it would be like, they use Durston Beers, and Durston Beers is the owner's last name of ISS. And so he did fake labels, and now they're on a lot of productions all over the world. Just because it's copyright free. Yeah.
We've always talked about like making T-shirts for like when there's like a movie within a movie, or a band or a band within a movie.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's like you can make a Durston beer like T-shirt.
The four of us would get it.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody else. Yeah. But yeah, it's like that prop card is the lifeline. It's like you stand by it all day. If you're a second or third or fourth, fifth, obviously the leads are usually offset prepping for the next day, and then the seconds are running the set. Depends on, it varies job to job and department, people to people, but yeah, it's like that's the lifeline. That's what you hang around. That's what you have actors come to give back their rubber guns after shooting a scene on Elementary, and so it's like
Do you have a checkout process? Like, so you give someone a gun, do they give you something? So.
No, it's just a high five and a don't leave the set with us.
Don't point this
So you'll
at
get
the
shot by
person.
the NYPD. I think why they started cracking down on it. We have a thing called TCD that we work with, which is the film and TV unit of the NYPD, and so we'll have one of those people on set anytime we have guns, and we take those guns to them and say, here's the pistols we're using. They're all rubber. Here's our blank firing gun, and they'll check that out. And here's our, sometimes they have new ones that are almost like squibs. They're electric. It's almost like shooting a cap gun, but you get the visuals and then you add the sound in later and it kind of all comes together. Most things use those nowadays, and I can't remember what those are called, but
Don't they use those on the Penguin or something like that?
Probably everywhere. Yeah. I mean, you only really use blanks anymore unless if you're out in the world and you really want that sound, you know what I mean? Because and a lot of times they won't even use that sound.
Yeah.
They put their own stuff
I can't
in there.
imagine anywhere in New York City is wanting anybody to fire
Exactly.
blanks.
And it's different. Yeah, the last decade of you have to be really on top. You have one person on top of the guns if you're on a bigger show on set, if it's a gun day. Obviously, I mean, I started when I was doing indie movies. I did a film down in Louisiana, Shreveport, the armpit of America is what I call it.
That's Jersey.
We'll talk about this after. This is a sidebar. But it was a gun-heavy movie, and I had to source all the guns. At that point, we didn't really have a budget for an armorer. If you brought it up, they would try to skirt around it and say, no, you can do it. You run the props. And so that's the last job I remember. Tom Sizemore, who I could have several stories about. I just spaced again. But so basically,
You just like, your memory is just like,
dude, I got Tom Sizemore in my head, and I was like, oh my god. He was a unique one.
It was a gun-heavy movie.
Movie, and it was like I was doing long arms, pistols, and there was scenes of shootouts and cars wrecking, and I did it, but I didn't really want to. And I ended up, everything was fine, shot the movie, and then that was the job where I was like, I'm putting my foot down. I think there comes a point for everybody, especially, when you're used to hearing like the word passion project of like, hey, I'm doing this passion project. It doesn't pay a lot, but it's going to be good. There comes a point in your career where you have to say no to things. And it's very important that you do, otherwise you don't grow. So I, at that point, realized, like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to take that liability. And we can see what happened on the set of Rust. Like, some asshole brought real bullets and was shooting cans.
Yeah.
And this inexperienced armorer just did a really horrible thing. I mean, it was a lot of people to blame. But so it's very important, and it's gotten much more important in these later years to have someone in charge of that and say, we're counting them each time we give them out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, we got 12 guns out. Call it out on the channel.
Yep.
Gubs, sorry.
It is interesting to say, like, even because, yes, it is important to say no, but there's also that factor of, like, especially when you're starting out, like, there's the worry and the pressure of you saying no. Oh, the next guy will say yes.
Yeah.
So it's not always like, I'm just negotiating my contract. Like, people say that, and they make it sound so easy, but it's like, you try to negotiate anything that gives you a little bit of strength, and you're gone.
Yeah.
And the next guy's in who's doing it for cheaper, and so it's like, people make it sound so, like, that's, to me, that's why the union and stuff are important, where it's like, people make it sound so easy for you to just like, well, you shouldn't do that. That's wrong. Yeah, it is. But if I don't, someone else is going to. So I know that I'm smart and I can do it safely.
Yeah. I mean, the general rule of hand is to never say no. Like I was taught that growing up doing film stuff is like, you always say yes to the director. You always say yes, unless it's like something you just can't do. And I have several examples from a film called Before It Had a Name with Willem Dafoe, which I won't, they're a little graphic, so we'll DM me. I'll tell you stories. But yeah, there's times when it's like, one, everybody on the crew knows this is not good, not a good idea. You are sticking to your guns, sometimes literally. And so at some point, you can't take on that liability anymore.
Yeah.
It's beyond you. It's bigger than you.
Yeah.
And you can't. We're having a hard enough time surviving in New York City alone, like let alone a lawsuit like that's happened with Rust. Like that ends careers.
Yeah, for sure.
But it is interesting. It's tough because, like when you're coming up, you always say yes.
Yeah.
You can't say no
Yeah.
because someone else is just they're going to get rid of you and they're going to get the person that comes in and says
probably
yes.
save money.
So it's like when you're in a situation like that, you just have to kind of like put a foot down, but also allow, I guess, a little bit of leeway, but you have to like kind of take a stance. So like when you're working with guns in that sense, like, is there like a process that you're like, all right, we got to follow this process where it's like, I'm going to hand this gun to this person. At least like I have this process, if we're going to kind of bend other things, at least I have a chain
Absolutely.
that I'm like, and then what is that like? Cause I've done it where it's like, they'll check it and then they'll hand it.
Yep.
They'll say like gun on set, and someone tells you it's not firing, and then they show you it's not firing, and then everyone kind of gets to visually see it, and then they pass it over. And that's after they've done, a few rehearsals with just like a piece of wood, like a
rubber gun,
or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, that you nailed it. That's kind of the exact thing you get with the TC, especially if it's in New York. If you're on a private property, it's different. You can kind of do what you want. I've shot spud guns. I made a bunch of spud guns for Jason Bateman movie. Those you could just kind of do. And
Wait, like a hairspray in the... Yeah. Oh, yeah. Those are awesome.
And we shoot Bateman's head. And then,
I like that he gets excited, too.
yeah.
He's like, no. Yeah.
I'll send you those pictures. But yeah, I made a red, white, and blue one. And yeah. But I had done that as a kid. My brother had made those when I was a kid. So like when I saw that in the script, I was like, what? I get to make spud guns? And then you're worried about like getting pulled over and somebody being like, what are you doing with that?
What's your preferred accelerant?
It's always hairspray, baby.
Oh, man. Yeah, I did hairspray and then I got into ether. Like,
ooh,
you can put an ether in them.
like...
I did that, and I like literally put a hole in the ground when I shot one.
Wow. Wow.
This is what buying a house in upstate New York will
Hell
get you.
yeah.
That was when I was in high school. It was like,
That's my dream, is just to have 5 acres to do all this dumb stuff.
yeah, just fucking blow shit up.
Yeah. Get all those old props out. Just do weird stuff. But yeah, there's definitely you have to be very, especially in the last decade, you have to be very intentional about who is handling them, who has access. Like you said, you start the day with a safety meeting saying, hey, we have weapons on set. There's some rubber weapons. We have a live weapon later in the day. And then, you start with the TCD. If it's in New York, you show it to them. They approve it or don't approve it. I've had them not approve it sometimes. And then you're just kind of screwed. And you're like, well, that's the main character's weapon. Like, what are we going to do?
Why would they not approve it?
You'd have to ask them, but sometimes it maybe is a little too close to a real gun, because a lot of the blank guns are just real guns shooting blanks. Shotguns you can't make really. Now they do. They have like the electric cap gun versions, but back in the day you couldn't rent a shotgun really. That it was just a real shotgun. You were just carrying around a real shotgun.
Yeah.
So there's the order of getting it approved, making sure the entire crew knows what you're doing, because that's the important thing. So some PA like on Rust doesn't come pick up, or the first AD should never be touching weapons, which is what happened there. He picked it up and handed it to Baldwin. So there's always a lineage of there's one person in charge of the weapons. On Elementary we did a lot of guns because it was a cop show, and Eric, the prop master, would take on a lot of the main character stuff and be, they're reloading and resetting the caps. But even before that, you show the actors, you make sure you shine a light through the barrel to make sure that there's no projectile, aka Brandon Lee, Bruce Lee. No, Brandon Lee. How'd Bruce Lee die?
It was Brandon Lee's son.
Brandon Lee, yeah.
Or Bruce Lee's son is Brandon Lee.
Brandon,
That's
yes, yes,
blah,
yes.
blah, blah.
It's one of the Lees. Yeah. But yeah, so you make sure there's nothing in the chamber, because if there's a little piece of, something from you shooting caps in your upstate New York backyard, then maybe that stays in there and it could kill somebody.
Yeah, because even blanks, like there's, I didn't realize there were different levels of like blanks.
Yeah.
And it's like when you go to the full blank, like it's
a full load
out
blank will
force.
Fuck.
And it's loud.
Yeah.
And there's a rule of like, if I don't know which one of these is my camera, but if you point into, you can never point at an actor or at a camera. You always do the fake where it's like
Off the lens. Yeah.
it's a little off, and so you have that leeway of like if something gets, because there's always something coming out, whether it's fire or the whatever. So you take that has been the industry standard for a long time. You fake it. You make a fake angle and you make it look like they're getting shot in the face, and then but yeah, we had individual people do individual weapons, and the more trusted people would be in charge of those, and some of the lesser trusted people would not. But then you would just literally stand by the actor, stand on set, and take after take, do the reload, or do the blanks or whatever. But typically they use blanks now outside, I think, because it's so loud, and then they do the. God, I wish I could figure out. I think it's called a non-gun. And it's like a little cap that they put in there, a little capsule. You put it in, and it's just a 9-volt battery, and they click it, and it spurts out.
Oh, cool.
Fire. Yeah. So that's the modern way, I think, of doing it. But yeah, it's important, and it's gotten more important over the years. I know of somebody, a prop master, losing a gun in New York City, an actual blank firing weapon. Yeah. So it's like, it's huge, and you don't want those. You don't want a cop showing up on your door and being like, and my boss Eric has had that. He had this FBI show up at his doorstep one day because he was buying
too many guns.
The craziest shit for elementary. Like he bought a bunch of like manure, and they thought he was making a bomb. So they showed up on Saturday at his front door and said, "Hey, what's going on?" And this is, if you wouldn't look at his car, he probably had tons of rubber guns and spilled blood, paint that looks like blood, and so you have to be careful. It's not something to be messed with, and now we know what the repercussions can be. You can lose people very easily. So, yeah, it's a huge thing. It's a big part of the thing.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's just have a process. Like, if you learn from other people, but have something that's consistent, because that seems to be what went wrong. Is there was just too many like people, and there was no structure to that.
Yeah, a little too loose. You can't be loose with that stuff.
No, not at all.
And the number one rule is you never, ever, ever bring real ammo on set, ever, for that reason. And every time, I've luckily never done that or mistakenly done that or any of that stuff. But people for some reason they're like, "Oh, we'll just keep it all together." And it's like, no, you can't do that.
But like you're saying, it's like the blank firing guns are still just guns.
Still
so
just
it's like
guns.
even if it's part of your kit, like your movie kit should be entirely separate than your like Saturday gun range kit.
Yes.
Like they don't cross over.
Yeah.
But even then, like when you're someone who's shot guns, like there's process to shooting guns with your friends.
Yes.
And even when it's like I'm drinking beer and shooting guns in a quarry, like we still have rules actually.
100%.
Yeah, like don't point that.
No one's pointing a gun at anyone else.
Make sure you have the angle.
Yeah, for sure.
But very important. Very important.
Let's just like hard left turn into something fun and talk about movie 43, because that's
How did you watch the whole movie?
I mean, probably when it came out, but that was what, 10 years ago? Like I have.
Yes.
Now it's like, that's one of those things where like sketch shows have become so ingrained in like everybody's lives. It's like clips of that pop up on fucking TikToks and Instagram reels and shit like that.
I feel like that's how I've watched it recently.
And like people, like they're like, "What the hell is this from?" And you're like, "Oh yeah, this was this huge movie with this insane cast, and no one knows how it got made, and you got to work on it."
Yeah, so this was one that
Can you explain what movie 43 is?
so movie
I just
43.
did.
Yeah. Well,
Still confused.
the thing is, like, at this point, I was doing sketch comedy with my buddy Danny, who's on the Adventures of Danny and Mike podcast. He is the Danny in the Danny. So I was shooting a lot of sketch comedy, writing a lot of sketch comedy, and really wanted to do that, be a comedic actor or be something in the world of sketch comedy. I quickly learned that people don't buy sketch comedy shows. There's no money in sketch comedy. So that sort of faded after a while, and then we started the podcast. But I got offered this thing, and they just said, "Oh, it's kind of like a sketch comedy movie," and I was like, "Ooh." My thought was like, oh, I'm going to slip in some sketches. I mean, maybe I'll do some rewriting for them.
Yeah.
Wasn't that?
A couple punch-ups.
Yeah. But then I did get the scripts and started reading them, and I was like, yeah, they're pretty funny, but how is this going to work? How is this going to work together? I mean, you've shot 6 sketches in LA, and now you're shooting a bunch in New York. But yeah, it's basically one of under 5 sketch comedy movies, I think, in existence. And it's called Movie 43 for some reason. I have no idea why. Even after watching, shooting it, I have no idea why it's called Movie 43.
Are there 43 sketches in the movie?
Maybe, I don't know. No, that'd be
43 days to shoot it.
There's probably some dumb thing like that. But like Kentucky Fried Chicken, Kentucky Fried Movie was one of the first sketch comedy movies. And then there's another like super famous one. But anyway,
I mean, I almost think like Monty Python is like sketches, but
but these were like sketch comedy, a little different. Like Amazon Women on the Moon. I don't know if you remember that movie. I have a poster of that movie, but that's kind of like it's narrative, but it's kind of like a sketch comedy movie. So they existed. I knew what they were. I've watched them as a kid. That was my passion, was just sketch comedy and doing writing and shooting and stuff. And I got called. A friend that worked on Half Nelson was working on this, and she was like, "Hey, I need a prop." I was like, "Cool." Got hired on. Wasn't in the union yet. I think that was The Verge. I still was getting my card, so I was on the list, so I could get the job because there weren't enough people out there at that time. So, got the job. Started to get into it. It was this producer named Charlie who had done a lot of the Coen Brothers movies. Coen? No. Who's the comedian? The Farrelly Brothers movies.
Very different brothers.
Yeah, different brothers.
2 different brothers. So he'd done a lot of those, and that was his background. So he had the pull with a lot of these big actors to get them to do these weird, tiny parts. And if you look at it, it's like crazy. Uma Thurman, it's just insane to see an actor of that stature with like fake testicles on their throat. It just makes no sense. And it's one thing if it's funny, but that's the other thing is like I didn't find it too terribly funny in spots, I guess, and I guess it's great for the meme world that we live in now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I went on it, got the job, and they said, we're doing these 4 sketches or 3 sketches. One's called Superhero Speed Dating. That's with Jason Sudeikis and Uma Thurman, and Jason's playing Batman, and Uma Thurman's playing Wonder Woman or something. All generic characters because we didn't have the licensing rights to any of them.
Right.
So I start prepping for that, and then that one was pretty laid back. It was just like superheroes. I had to build a bomb, like an old school like Joker bomb, with the red dynamite sticks,
And the clock.
Yeah. So that was a good intro to the whole thing, and it was all great people working on it. The crew was great. It was very. It seemed like everybody was like, "Yeah, this could be something." And then we start doing the homeschooled one, and that's with Jeremy Allen White, who is now famous for The Bear. He was a kid, and the sketch was called Homeschooled, and his parents, Liev Schreiber, and his wife, huge actors. I just come off this other movie, and was coming on this, so I'd known Liev a little bit and talked to him. And so they pitched it as like, all right, here's the script, here's the thing. It's this kid who's being treated like he's a normal kid, but he's homeschooled. So one of the things we had to do is tape Jeremy Allen White to a flagpole. So we have these pictures of Jeremy Allen White, a young Jeremy Allen White, being duct taped to this pole and being hazed by his parent, Liev Schreiber. and saying, and he kept the video I have, which I don't know if it's in the movie, but I'll send it to you guys when I get back. But it's him saying like, "I'm the worst. I suck dicks. I suck big balls. I'm the worst." And it's just like over and over him begging for his life, basically getting hazed by Liev Schreiber. And that was the point where it was like, oh, okay. And then we moved on to the scenes inside, and Naomi Watts, that's the name. Naomi Watts is his husband, a wife of Liev Schreiber, was, I don't know if they still are. So her scenes, and she was a big deal. Like, she's a big actress. So we got in there, and her first scene was a bedroom scene with the kid. And it was like, they were treating it like she was the date, and it was like his first time. And it was so fucked up. But I mean, as a comedian, I was like, hilarious, awesome. Yeah. You're making somebody cringe, and you're doing your job. But because reaction is all you want, you know. But
now that's like every fucking porn movie too.
Yeah.
It's all your fucking stepmom.
Yeah, exactly. It's all has to be family based for some stupid reason. Do better, Pornhub. It doesn't have to. Why does it have to be the niece, the cousin?
Legit.
Why?
Because of movie 43.
You started
exactly. So yeah, well, that was one, and then I had to build like a helmet. You know, he doesn't have any friends because he's homeschooled, so I had to build a life-size doll that he would just carry around as his friend. He's like, "Oh, me and May are going to see a movie," and I'd be like, "Oh, well, tell May I said hello," and then he's like, brings it out, and he's like, "Mom and Dad say hello," you know. It's like, so. I mean, for me, it was a dream come true because I'm working on a sketch comedy movie. I'm seeing all these great actors, Sudeikis, you know, I looked up to, and like, you know, we do like a backyard scene where, I don't know if you know this, but if you do a keg stand in a backyard scene, a lot of times it's water, or for a long time they did root beer. So I would order root beer from upstate. There's a specific root beer place, and we'd have kegs of root beer on set.
Nice.
So they could do their keg stands. So Jeremy Allen White was in the back doing keg stands and getting yelled at by his father, and yeah, just insane. And you know, I don't think it ever worked out correctly. I don't think it's the vision that they were all expecting, especially the actors, you know, having those big names on there. I'm trying to think of the other one.
Do you feel like sometimes when it's funny on set, that means it's not going to work?
Right.
It's like a crapshoot. You just never know.
Yeah.
I mean, even from doing comedy, it's like I can write, you know, sometimes we write a little inebriated or a little stoned or something, and you always have the rule of you can write however you want, but rewrite sober. With you know, write with your heart, rewrite with your mind. Yeah. And so I'm not sure that part happened.
Yeah.
Wasn't there another one like an iPhone ripoff?
Oh, yeah, that was the one I was trying to think of. So this one had Richard fucking Gere. This was one of my favorites. I had to carve me and the department, not just me, but we had to carve a giant size Apple iPhone box. I think it was like the 4, or maybe it was even the 3G. It was early iPhone, black box, silver letters. So I had made a giant box and had fake Apple logos stuck on it. And then inside we had it molded to a model. So this model was completely naked. So it was called the iBabe. Jesus. It's called the iBabe, and it was basically I guess it was like a phone charger / now that I think about it, maybe it just was a naked lady as a battery pack or something. But, you know, it wasn't like, but I guess it did play music and stuff. She had a little dial, like the old school dial in her stomach. So we have this poor model, and I built this box. I had to like go to her in advance and like fit her body.
Size her up.
And then we did like a form-fitting fake
nice.
iPhone box to her naked body. Not a bad day. And then, yeah, we get to set, and Richard Gere is there, and Samanaj? Anyway, one of the Daily Show guys are there, so I'm a huge Daily Show fan, and I was like, oh, man. And one of my greatest, I think, achievements in that film is directing Richard Gere. And I say directing, and it's not. So the director and the producers are all standing around this box, and they're like, man, how are we going to... Because the story was that kids were buying these iBabes, these adult grown naked women that were supposedly fake, but they were real naked women. And they had fans down in the lower parts, and they were getting their dicks cut off because they kept sticking their penises in the fans, the cooling fans of these iBabes.
So stupid.
Oh man, some dude,
So
some hopped up bro wrote this shit, 100%. Just a table full of cocaine, real cocaine, not Ryan Gosling cocaine. So yeah, we were in there one day, and we're like, to really get that. How are we going to show that? How are we going? Because it's down, the fan is down below and it's covered when she's in the box. We had a case on the box, so it looked just like an iPhone. And so I was like, Mr. Gear, I don't know what I called him, Richard, whatever. We're not on a first name basis. And I said, well, here's something you could do. Richard, what do you think about like just gently putting your hand in the front of the box and like getting your hand buzzed? And he was like, oh my God, that's great. So I haven't put it on my resume, but that is the one time I got to direct Richard Gere. So I hold that very high, up with like making Robin Williams laugh. That was my other one that was very high up. That is something you don't do every day. But yeah, it was just ridiculous, and you got to do really fun things. And these, it wasn't the greatest. That's the thing. Most of the shit we work on as people, it's probably not going to be that good. And you have to work on some of those, and you have to put your time in and do the thing. But man, I will never forget directing Richard Gere to put his hand in the fake iBabe box.
Fucking stupid thing to have to tell him to.
And I think they added the sound effect of like zzz, zzz. So,
oh my God,
it's pretty great. But yeah, the quick story: the Robin Williams was one of my greatest. I just love him. He was amazing, and I got to work with him on a show called The Night Listener, which was his serious role. It wasn't a comedic thing. It was based on a Armistead Maupin book about getting catfished. So I got to know Robin for the 3-4 months. I was the on-set dresser. It was one of my first on-set dresser jobs, which after that I didn't want to do it anymore because I didn't like it. But I got to be around Robin Williams for 8 hours a day. And I will never, ever forget how loving and giving this man was to his crew, to the people, even while suffering through all this stuff. It's like he would still show up. He got us all custom, at the end of the shoot, he got us all custom like lookbooks from the show where he signed the front of it. Wow. Of course, I moved and mine was lost, so I don't have it. Oh. I did find one for $500 somewhere for sale, so I think I'm going to buy it one of these days. But I have to. The business is going to have to start making some money to do that. But yeah, it's like I just told him a weird, dumb. It was during the Bush White House, and I told him some dumb Bush White House joke of like, I don't even remember the joke. Something about picking up the phone and saying, "Hello, this is the White House," and I did it in the Robin Williams voice, and he laughed, and I was like, "Oh my God." As a comedy guy, as somebody who'd just grown up watching Mork and Mindy, it's amazing, like a hero. And then, getting to see him be him on set at the craft service table, doing his Robin thing here and there, putting on that facade, and never forget, man. He's a legend. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. That's got to be like, I don't know. It's like you finally connect with the thing that you fell in love with, when you first started watching
it's
movies.
Also, for me, it's like sometimes you meet your heroes and they end up just being pieces of shit. So it's awesome to meet a hero and then they live up to the hype that,
Yeah. He would go out and talk to the crowds of people that would come stand around his little town. And yeah, he was one of the good ones, man.
Yeah.
But as a lot of these comedians, it's like they just suffer on the inside for the outside. So
yeah.
But yeah, man, never forget that guy.
No.
I'd love to segue over to talking about the Seltzer Kings Network, the podcast that you have running. So when did you start doing this podcast? And can you give us some background on what it is?
So I started podcasting with Danny and Mike on The Adventures of Danny and Mike in 2013. I think we started sort of before the boom. Mm-hmm. So we were doing audio video episodes, getting on guests, and sort of getting feet wet of producing podcasts. And, we were trying to sort of do what everyone's trying to do, make it a thing and make it something we can all have it as our daily driver, so to speak. But pandemic hit. I was still doing a lot of the work, a lot of the audio editing, the video editing. so on that side, I was still do a lot of the technical stuff, but I started thinking about the business side of it. And I've never been a business person. I don't know if you can tell by looking at me.
Same here.
Well, the fact that you're glossing over the fact that this is Pete and Pete that you're talking
it's
about,
Pete and Pete.
And you're just saying Danny and Mike, like everybody knows that,
Sorry.
but it's like,
So Richard Gere.
so if you're marketing,
So yeah, it was Pete and Pete. If you haven't watched the 90s genius show called The Adventures of Pete and Pete on Nickelodeon, you should go back and rewatch because it's still good. The Halloween episode we just rewatched. So good.
there's one where the pavement's so hot, everybody's shoes get stuck to the ground, and there's a phone ringing.
Yep.
That is like burned into my head for some reason.
Yeah. Yeah, we do these live shows now where we'll go called Nostalgia Personified, and we'll go and we'll show clips and we'll talk about, the guys being on set that day on sliding down a hill on a block of ice like a sled, which Danny had to do, or getting buried alive on one of the first days of filming Pete and Pete. So, but yeah, check those out. We got a lot of episodes of the Danny Mike podcast to talk about stuff like that. But yeah, so pandemic hit. Obviously, all of us were struggling as an industry, and I sort of was starting to make my way out. I had done a few, I worked on Girls for a long time. I worked on just some staple shows around New York where I'd get like the fourth or fifth job. I sort of started taking a back seat at that point when I got my card, because I realized I could be the fourth and do about a 16th of the work and get paid the same amount. And I was like, well, why am I stressing? Why am I hearing that walkie in my ear chirp when I go to sleep at night?
And you get to kind of choose your days at that point. You don't have to work every day.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I was, I got to a point where I could do like 3 or 4 days a week and be fine. So in 2020 hit and all that kind of stopped. And, we're one of those industries that just completely shuts down, and people tried. But so I just started putting all of these pieces together of, hey, I have produced these 2 podcasts that have gone way over 1 million. I have produced these live shows, with Danny and Mike that have toured all over the world. Maybe there should be a home for all this. Maybe there should be a network. And we, at that point, the seltzer boom sort of had begun, and it wasn't sort of as mainstream, but we would order we had Kurt Braunholer on as a guest one time, and we ordered a 2-year-old bottle of seltzer from eBay and drank it on the podcast. Oh my God. And we were like, I don't know, this might not be good for us, but it was like this Unicorn Kisses polar seltzer that was famous.
Yeah.
So we just bought into the seltzer thing, and every episode was, I would always have seltzer out for everybody. So that just became the talking point. And at some point I was like, yeah, it's Seltzer Kings. So it was started as a reference on the Adventures of Danny and Mike podcast. And then it sort of started growing during the pandemic. I did take a few more jobs like Hello Tommorow and stuff. But at that point I was kind of trying to get out of it. I was 40 something years old, and the body was starting to not feel as young and sprightly as, the older days, and just starting to take stock in things. And yeah, I just started sort of clamping down during the pandemic. I was like, all right, this is my time. I have free time. This is so I started the business, started the LLC. We have produced, I think, 12 to 14 podcasts on the network. 12, I think, right now. With Lori Beth Denberg. I'm sure you remember her from the Nickelodeon days. Did one of her podcasts, produced that. And then that sort of started coming to shape as a business, and being that we're in kind of a creator's economy now, and that, a lot of people are doing everything, in front of the camera now. And
yeah, anyone with a camera can be a fucking talk show host now.
These cameras are expensive, though. I'll say that. Not everybody can use these cameras. But so yeah, I started sort of standing up the company around 2020 and got the LLC and saved, I had to save money to get that $400 to pay for the LLC, and I had to do all this stuff. But I was like, this is my time to do it. So I started putting gas pedal down and reaching out to people. And at that point I was doing a podcast with called the Bradshaw Boys, which is like a Sex and the City rewatch with some dudes. And that started getting really popular, and we started having all the guests
It's
on.
So niche, but yeah, I could see it being popular.
People loved it. Over 1 million downloads.
Damn.
Probably, maybe multi-million. I haven't looked in a long time.
That's
but
silly.
yeah, it's the niche podcasting, man. So yeah, and that's when it started. I named it Seltzer Kings. We started referencing it on all the podcasts, and then it just started becoming a thing. And I was like, all right, well, what does this look like as a business? And so I got through the pandemic, stood up the business, and then I got to basically do a couple TV jobs, and then, at this point, I'm sort of living off podcasting, which is incredible, sort of a dream. We got funding early this year, so now we're a funded company. We're doing all the fun things of Google Ads and trying to get clients in, and if you need a podcast made, try these guys too, but I can help as well.
We barely make this one.
Spread the love. So yeah, that was the beginning, and obviously it started with Pete and Pete podcast, and it started with Bradshaw Boys, and just making things for client, knowing that you could do it, sort of like the film thing, where you start small and you're like, I don't know if I can do this.
So just in talking as like an actual like production referencing, like let's say somebody wants to get into it, do you think that finding that niche, like the market that like find the topic that already has a market, does that help you? Or is it like really just push whatever you want and then?
It's honestly, I tell people that after a while, even if it is your love, passion project, it's going to feel like work and it's going to suck. Like any of this creative stuff that we do, it's going to feel like work. So you really have to judge, do I want to put all this time in? And me, you, all you got, you especially, do the editing and the post-production. Like I got to the point where I was nonstop. I would go work on set for 12 hours. I'd come home and work for 6 hours. I'd go and I'd sleep for 2 or 3 or 4. And I'd do that all over again. And that's how we made our sketch comedy. That's how we made. But I think, one of the growth parts of the industry and creatives in general, I think, is just knowing when, it's like saying no.
It's when to say no. Yeah, exactly.
Same thing. For sure. It's like, all right, maybe I can exist another way. I don't have to live off of, a film career, and there is other stuff. So I found an investor last year, became really close with him, and we've been building this network now. So we have 2 sides to the network. We have a services portion, and we have the podcast network portion. Right now it's a tipping in one direction where the services are paying for a lot of it, but we're hoping to get to a point where the network can start bringing in enough money, and we can find some of these niche podcasts that can really find those audiences, sort of just like what you guys are doing. So, and that's why I reached out to you guys. I love what you're doing. I think having shitty rigs for podcast mics is a genius idea. It's all branded. It's all about the branding. But yeah, so we stood up the company, and now we are about a year in, and we're profitable, and we're taking on clients from all over the world, and just making podcasts, man. Living the life.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Are all your podcasts video and audio, or is there like a mix of like some audio, some video?
It's a mix. Yeah, Danny and Mike, we had a Patreon for a long time where the video portion would be behind that paywall, and then you get the free audio with ads, and then if you wanted the ad free, you'd go through the paywall. It's all changing. YouTube is changing things, and for the better or worse, I don't know. But so it's a little different now of, and then back to the, the question of like, what works. It's like, who knows?
Yeah. I was going to ask, do you see that, like, does the video help? Does it do better? Or does it is there a difference in production because of it?
I think it does. We're living in a YouTube world, right? So all the kids watch things on YouTube, and, so I think just feeding into that is helpful. But again, we've, put most of it behind a paywall, and, we have the 10 years worth of video and audio episodes that at some point we're going to start reconstituting and sort of making into new content, or evergreen content, as they call it. We have that from 6 podcasts that we can do now. So, and now it's just getting the company stood up, saying, hey, this is the proof of concept. We can do this. These are our clients. This is what we're doing. And then just trying to find those pieces, people who really need high quality professional podcast made by somebody who's been doing it for a decade, and with a film background, which also helps, because a lot of people that going into it, they don't have any idea, especially on the corporate level. I've found no idea what they're doing.
We've equated it to like there's the first season of a show or whatever. It's like shot in 4:3 with like high def cameras, and then you can tell like second season started, and now it's like widescreen and like, oh, they got money the
got the
second
air
time
money.
around. But it's like with podcasts, I feel like a lot of people, you can fucking buy equipment at Target now. It's really weird.
Yeah.
But like if you start with a shitty mic, I am never listening past episode 1.
And that's the thing. That's the other thing I tell people is like, it's an audio medium, regardless if you're going to do video, if you're going to do anything else, clips, social clips, it's an audio medium. Stay true to the audio medium of podcasts. That's why I love it, because it was little self-serving. That's why I started a podcast in 2006. I started, it was the first, probably like 3 months after they announced it. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Little downloadable bite-sized clips. And so I would, during the music days, I would write a song and perform it just on my shitty computer mic and then release that. So 1 hour I would write a song and record a song, and then that would be the episode. So I did like 5 or 6, I think, in 2006, and then sort of dropped it. But that's what planted the seed for podcasting, was like, this idea is genius. It's to have this stuff in your pocket nowadays, especially when the iPhone took over. So yeah, I mean, back to the video, I don't know. I don't know what works the best. I don't know anybody could say this is the Bible, but what we try to do is put out good, positive stuff. We don't try to get in the weeds too much with whatever, but we do talk our minds. We talk about whatever we want, especially on the Danny mic. All the other ones are the same way. So it's just about trying to put out, good vibes out there, bro.
Trying to stay positive.
Yeah.
Do you also disseminate your stuff outside of, like, I guess, how does your content live? Is it on like YouTube, on just your network, or do you also put your stuff out on like Instagram?
So we do audiogram episodes of the podcast. So each podcast will spit out automatically an audiogram version, which is like a static image with a waveform.
Oh, okay.
So that's the free version on YouTube, and then we have the actual filmed. I've sort of went through many incarnations of cameras and setups and stuff, so it varies over the years. But yeah, so all that other stuff we all put on a paywall, and now it's all different. So it might be better to just release it and put it out on YouTube. I mean, I have a thing about the Google podcast terms of service where it just seems like they take your content and can kind of do whatever they want with it. So I've been struggling with that. I haven't signed up any of the podcasts for Google Podcasts, the new thing, because
I think it's gone. Actually.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think they
shut it
closed
down.
like last year.
Well, now it's folded into the
Well, they might have called it. Yeah,
Google
they called
Music
it something else now
or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
But read that terms of service. It's weird. From the company who had in their motto, "Do no harm."
Well, it's interesting too, because it's like we pay for a certain service and then it auto disseminates.
Yeah.
Like it gives it to like Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all this other stuff. So it's like,
Yeah.
how do I know what? I never read those terms of services. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, well, that's the RSS feed in general. I feel like that's what's great about it, is that you are sending out as like an aggregate to just plop it out. And then, if you have a good server, I use Megaphone. I think they're pretty great, but anybody, you guys use something else. I mean, they're all pretty much industry standards now, but, a lot of those metrics and stuff come from inside of your server, of where you're uploading the files. And then, Megaphone has it built in where you just distribute to all these channels. But yeah, so but again, it's a whole new world. It's like from when I started in 2006 to 2013, when we started, to 2024. I just went to Pod Movement out in DC for the first time and just sat in some of the sessions and listened, and people worried about YouTube and all that sort of stuff, and video and
the thing that's
premium.
been around longer than podcasts.
Yeah. But yeah, man, we're just Seltzer Kings we just want to do some great stuff, man, and give people, tell stories. I mean, that's we're a story-driven podcast network. That's our motto. So anyone out there looking to tell a good story, seltzerkings.com.
Any future plans to release your own seltzer?
I've actually,
Because I feel like that's
So happy you asked.
I'm going to drop this idea on this podcast.
Okay,
Right?
yeah, do
That's
it.
it.
Did you ever go to a diner and they have these mugs and they have all different advertisers on it?
Uh-huh.
I want to do that with a seltzer can and do different podcast advertisements on the seltzer. Sell the ads to the podcasts and then get branded seltzer. I've already reached out to the distributors. We'd had a 2-hour meeting about getting the seltzer made, how they make it. Do we want flavors? Do we want the ingredients to be organic? Do we want all this stuff? We have definitely
That's so
gone
much
down that
work to
road.
get those labels approved
then where do
every
you
single fucking time.
And then where do you put cases of seltzer to store? It just doesn't. It quickly was an idea that has not turned out
Scalable
yet
at all. Yeah.
But I do like the idea. I like the idea of having some sort of a collective podcast world advertising platform.
Yeah, I'm just picturing like the placemat at like a small town diner.
Exactly.
It's like all
That's
the local
exactly it.
businesses. Yeah,
Yep. So
yeah.
dreams. I got a lot of great ideas. Execution.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
You just named the different flavors of your seltzer are your different podcasts.
Oh yeah.
That's
Orange cream for Heat and Pete. Let's see. Bradshaw Boys would be pink lemonade.
yeah.
I've always wanted to do a cherry cola seltzer. That's what I would do if we were doing a flavored Seltzer King seltzer. It would be a cherry cola seltzer.
Wouldn't that just be cherry cola?
soda.
No brown. It's going to be clear seltzer water. It's gonna,
Without the food
It's the
coloring.
essence
no
of
sugar.
cola.
It's
Call
essence.
Call it no brown.
Yeah.
Essence of Coke.
That'll go over well.
I think that might get flagged. And we're canceled. Shut them down, boys.
See ya.
Well, it's good while it lasted. Well, I mean,
on that note of
that's a
that,
great note to end on.
No.
I mean, Jeremy, thanks so much for being on the podcast, coming on and talking to us about just your experience as a prop master, giving us some insight on Seltzer Kings Network. And we will put your information in the description below so people know where to find you, know where to find all your podcast episodes and content. And maybe we'll have you back on for another episode at some point. Or,
Sounds like a plan.
Thanks so much for
I mean,
being here.
I could smell a Smoky Jeremy episode. I'm not out loud, but I'd love to see that guy again. I
We
haven't
need
seen
to
him
block out a whole day for that.
Yeah, and then it's just you and Smokey competing for camera time because he's gonna just race you for stories at that point. Yeah, so you better have a Rolodex of stories.
He would probably spark some memories, to be honest. Yeah, my memory's not that
He'll
good.
definitely spark something.
Listen, I'm down for that too. Listen.
Well, thank you guys for tuning in and for watching other episodes of Rap Drinks, and see you on the next one.
Cheers.
Thanks, fellas.
Cutting.
Sweet.